Chapter 1227. The world announcement was repeated 3 times in a row. It instantly blew up the entire world channel. F*CK. F*CK. What's going on? We were just talking about the opportunity to recruit historical civil officials and historical generals. Yi of Gojosian immediately recruited a historical civil official, and a first-rate one at that. Idiot, why are you asking? What does Yi of Gojosian want to do that he needs to report to you? Is he tired of living and looking for some excitement? I say, could it be that Yi of Gojosian is preparing to recruit historical civil officials and historical generals? Definitely. Don't forget, Yi of Gojosian wants to conquer the world. Without subordinates, how can he conquer the world? Whether it is or not is not important. What's important is that whatever Yi of Gojosian wants to do is not something you can control. Also, let me give you a piece of advice. Don't be cocky and act pretentious. Otherwise, if you get killed by Yi of Gojosian, it will be too late for you to cry and regret. F*CK. Who the hell wants to go against Yi of Gojosian? I just want to recruit some subordinates and bring them to the real world. That way, I can play games in peace. I think so too. If we really recruit a military general, the real world will be much safer. When we play games, we can let the military general protect us. We won't have to worry about any unexpected incidents or dangers. I think that Yi of Gojosian won't restrict us from recruiting civil officials and generals. Moreover, he can't restrict us. After all, those civil officials and generals are spread across the entire Great Han Empire. Yi of Gojosian is just one person. He can't appear in every part of the Great Han Empire at once. Therefore, we still have a chance. You're thinking too much. Don't forget what the prerequisites are to recruit civil officials and generals. Without fame, power, or an official position, you can dream on if you want to recruit civil officials and generals. Damn it, I'm not trying to subdue those awesome generals or awesome civil officials. I just want to get a third-rate one. Can I do that? Are you kidding me? A third-rate person doesn't want fame, an official position, or power. What a joke. If it was possible, there wouldn't be only a few people who have successfully subdued some unranked generals whose names I've never even heard of. There's no point in saying all this. I only want to know one thing right now. If we take action now to subdue the generals, will Yi of Gojosian stop us? Who the hell knows? If you want to ask, you should ask Yi of Gojosian. But I can tell you clearly that I'm not going to try to subdue any historical generals. If I want to subdue one, I'll just subdue one with some fighting ability and bring him to the real world. That way, I'll have a helper. I think so too. If you have a helper in the real world, you'll be able to do a lot of things. That's right. I know someone who took in a bandit follower. Now, that bandit follower not only helps him do this and that, but when he's in danger, he even helps him. It's so satisfying. I know someone who has a girl from a respectable family. That girl cooks good food for him every day. At night, she serves him to her heart's content. He's so high every day. Damn it, you guys are making my heart itch. Hee hee. That's why we have to seize the opportunity. Now that Lu Hong is dead, the Great Han Dynasty is going to be in chaos. This is the best opportunity. When the time comes, we won't want to recruit those famous historical generals and civil officials. But those with fighting ability or good looks won't be restricted. Even if we only recruit one, it'll be a helper. Whatever. I'm not going to fight with Yi of Gojosian. I'm going to recruit some servants and maids and bring them to the real world. I'm going to. The world channel was abuzz with activity. Yichen glanced at it and curled his lips in disdain. Now wasn't the time to recruit the natives of the game world. Even then, it wouldn't be that easy to recruit them. Even if they were recruited, if they weren't loyal to him and he brought them to the real world, it would be easy for them to kill their master. In Yi Chen's previous life, there were quite a few players who brought the natives of the game world to the real world. But less than 30% of the natives actually managed to gain control of them. The rest of the natives, for one reason or another, rebelled and killed the player. This was the reason why Yi Chen thought this way. Of course, it was also the truth. But then again, the players in this life were quite quick-witted. If they could really recruit the natives of the game world and bring them to the real world, it would indeed improve the situation of the players in the real world. I just don't know if there will really be players who will fight with me over the civil officials and generals. If they don't appear, then it's fine. If they appear, then I'll kill them all. I don't want this last operation of plundering my subordinates to be ruined by someone. Thinking of this, Yichen narrowed his eyes and a cold light flashed. In most cases, Yichen wasn't hard to talk to and was easy to get along with. But if someone angered Yichen wouldn't care who they were and would kill them without hesitation. Whether he was cruel or heartless, Yichen wouldn't do anything that would give benefits to others. Just as Yichen thought of this, Guijia and Dianwei, who had come with Yichen, smiled and cupped their fists at Zhu. Yingchuan, Guijia, and Guofengxiao greet Brother Zhu. Dianwei greets Brother Zhu. You flatter me. Zhu greets General Dian and Chancellor Gua. Zhu hurriedly returned the greeting. Who were Guijia and Dianwei? If it was in the past, perhaps only the people in their area knew about them. But now, they had followed Yichen to conquer the world and had become household names. Although Zhu was talented, he didn't dare to put on airs in front of Guijia and Dianwei. Of course, Zhu wasn't that kind of person. Hearing this, Yichen couldn't help but smile. Then, he looked at Zhu and asked, Zhu, do you need a hand over to someone? Zhu was the county magistrate. It would be inappropriate for Yichen to take Zhu away. Otherwise, Yichen wouldn't have asked this question. My lord, I only need to leave a letter for the prefect. Then I can leave. Zhu hurriedly bowed and said. Yichen nodded and said, Go, write the letter and bring your family to the reincarnation immortal city. Yes, my lord. Zhu hurriedly bowed and said. Then he went to the side of the table and started writing. Before long, Zhu covered the letter with an inkstone and went to Yichen. My lord, I've finished writing the letter. I can leave now. Hearing this, Yichen nodded and waved his right hand. The space in front of him instantly distorted. Zhu was stunned when he saw this. When Yichen saw this, he couldn't help but smile and say, Just walk in. After saying this, Yichen stepped into the space and disappeared without a trace. Zhu was stunned when he saw this. After all, he wasn't Zhao Yun, Dianwei, Guijia, and the others who had been following Yichen. He had never seen Yichen's ability. After a short moment of shock, Guijia smiled and patted Zhu on the shoulder. Then, he followed Dianwei into the distorted space and disappeared. When Zhu saw this, he immediately regained his senses and took in a breath of cold air. My lord is an immortal. After saying this, Zhu's eyes lit up and he excitedly entered the distorted space. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared without a trace. Chapter 1228. The space in Zhu's house suddenly distorted. Then, Yichen, Dianwei, Guijia, and Zhu appeared one after another. Looking at the familiar courtyard, Zhu tried hard to calm his racing heart. He then bowed to Yichen and said, My lord, I'll ask my wife to pack up. It won't take long. Go ahead. Yichen chuckled and nodded his head when he heard this, then said. Hearing this, Zhu bowed again and went to the back of the house. Not long after, Zhu brought his wife and some simple luggage to the front of the house. After meeting Yichen, Zhu dismissed the servants. Yichen smiled and said, Zhu, go to Zhu. Zhu, when you reach Reincarnation Immortal City, you can look for me, Zhu, directly. Yes, my lord. Hearing this, Zhu's eyes lit up, and he quickly bowed. Yichen said Reincarnation Immortal City, not Reincarnation City. Zhu seemed to have understood something from the word immortal. This was also the reason why Zhu was so excited. After hearing Zhu's words, Yichen nodded his head smilingly. He then waved his right hand, causing the space beside him to distort. Go. Yes, my lord. When Zhu heard this, he bowed again. Then, he brought his wife and walked into the distorted space. In a breath's time, they disappeared without a trace. Seeing this, Yichen couldn't help but smile. He then looked at Guojia and Dianwei. Let's go to the next stop. Yes, my lord. Guojia and Dianwei looked at each other and smiled. Then they bowed together. Hearing this, Yi Chun smiled faintly. With a thought, the space before him started to distort. After looking at the twisted space, Yi Chun stepped into it and disappeared. Guojia and Dianwei, who were nearby, hurried to catch up with him and then disappeared without a trace. East County, East Marshall County. Outside the Chun mansion, the space was distorted. Then Yi Chun, Guojia, and Dianwei appeared one after another. Glancing at the Crimson Gate, Yi Chun looked straight at Dianwei and said, "That's right. Go and knock on the door." "Yes, my lord." Dianwei hurriedly bowed and went up to knock on the door. A few seconds later, the vermilion door opened with a creak, and a servant stuck his head out. After looking at Yi Chun, Guojia, and Dianwei, the servant was stunned. Then, he looked directly at Yi Chun and was stunned. You Lord Beach, you know me?" When Yi Chun heard this, he looked at the Chun mansion's servant in astonishment before opening his mouth to ask, "It's really you, Lord Beach?" When the servant heard this, he cried out in alarm. Then, he hurriedly opened all the doors. Then, he stepped forward and bowed. "Greetings, Lord Beach. When the demon race invaded, I was almost eaten by those beasts. If you, Lord Beach, hadn't happened to pass by, I would have been eaten. I didn't expect to see you, Lord Beach, today. I thank you, Lord Beach, for saving my life." "I see." Hearing this, Yi Chun nodded his head and asked, "Is Chun Gongtai at home?" "Lord Ghost King, my master is at home." "Lord Ghost King, please wait for a moment. This lowly one will go and pass the message." When the servant of the Chun clan heard this, he hurriedly bowed and said. When Yi Chun heard this, he chuckled and nodded his head. The servant of the Chun clan heaved a sigh of relief when he saw this. He was worried that Yi Chun would be angry because of the message. After all, Yi Chun was of noble status. It would be rude to make Yi Chun wait. However, this was the Chun mansion and he was a servant. It would be inappropriate to let Yi Chun enter. Otherwise, he wouldn't have relaxed so much after Yi Chun nodded. After coming back to his senses, the Chun mansion's servant hurriedly turned around and ran into the courtyard with a tung-tung sound. Guojia, who was at the side, glanced at the servants of the Chun clan who were running away quickly. Then he looked at Yi Chun and said, "My lord, this Chun Gongtai is not simple to be able to train his servant to be so obedient." Yi Chun nodded with a smile and said, "That's true. That is indeed the case. If it were an ordinary family, they would probably be so flustered that they would directly welcome me in after recognizing me." Yi Chun's status was incomparably honorable. If Yi Chun were to directly enter the Chun clan, no one would dare to say anything, nor would they show the slightest hint of dissatisfaction. However, this was against the rules, thus Yi Chun would naturally not do so. Otherwise, Yi Chun wouldn't have waited outside and asked the servant to pass on the message. As for why he went to Ju Shou's place earlier, it was because Ju Shou was in the county office. There was no need to pass on any message. Anyone could enter. If Ju Shou was in the back of the county office, Yi Chun wouldn't have gone there directly. After all, the back of the county office was where the county magistrate and his family lived. Of course, Ju Shou didn't live in the county office. Instead, he lived in his own house. After Yi Chun finished speaking, Dianwei scratched his head and looked at Yi Chun. "My lord, if Chun Gongtai doesn't choose to follow you, should we kill him?" Yi Chun was slightly taken aback when he heard this. Then, he patted Dianwei's shoulder and said, "You only have one chance. There's only one chance. Otherwise, I wouldn't have brought you here." "I understand." Dianwei nodded and replied. When Guojia heard this, he couldn't help but smile and say, "That's right." He said, "My lord, if Chun Gongtai heard this, he would regret teaching his servant to be so obedient." Hearing those words, Yi Chun glared at Guojia and said, "What are you talking about? This king is not angry. Of course, this is only limited to those who are on our side. If they're not on our side, then why should this king be polite?" Guojia laughed awkwardly when he heard this. Then he quickly bowed and said, "My lord, my lord. My lord Jia, I was wrong. Please forgive me, my lord." Yi Chen couldn't help but laugh when he heard this. Then he looked at Guijia and said, Feng Xiao, this Chen Gontai is very opinionated. This trip might go smoothly, or it might not. If it doesn't go smoothly, you'll have to persuade him. Your lord doesn't want a talent like him to end his good life prematurely. Chen Gontai was famous for being upright and loyal. Otherwise, he wouldn't have rejected Cao Cao so many times in history and then died. Of course, this was also the reason why Yi Chen said this. After all, Yi Chen still didn't know if Chen Gontai had been solicited or if he had accepted. Although according to the trajectory of history, he should have chosen Lu Bu in the end. However, this trajectory of history had been somewhat disrupted by Yi Chen. For example, Gong Sun Zan and Liu Bei were both killed by Yi Chen. Among them, Liu Bei had a lot of dealings with Lu Bu. His death might very well affect who Chen Gontai would belong to. Otherwise, Yi Chen wouldn't think this way. Chapter 1229. As soon as Yi Chen finished speaking, Guijia nodded seriously, then bowed and said, Yes, my lord. Guijia was a civil official. Naturally, he did not want to see a capable civil official die. However, if things went south, Guijia would agree with Yi Chen's decision to execute Chen Gong without any hesitation. After all, Guijia was loyal to Yi Chen. He did not want to see Chen Gong following someone else and causing trouble for Yi Chen and the reincarnation Immortal City. Even if Chen Gong was like a bubble that would burst at the slightest touch in the face of the overwhelming strength of the reincarnation Immortal City, he would not allow it. Yi Chen smiled when he heard this. At this moment, a figure suddenly ran out from the back of the Chen residence, and a young man appeared at the entrance. The instant he saw the young man, Yi Chen could not help but raise his eyebrows. At this moment, the young man's 3 steps turned into 2 and directly arrived in front of Yi Chen. After tidying up his clothes, he respectfully bowed to Yi Chen and said, Chen Gong and Chen Gontai pay their respects to you of Beach. I did not receive an invitation, so I came here on my own accord. Gontai, please don't. When Yi Chen heard this, he chuckled and nodded. However, before he could finish, he was hastily interrupted by Chen Gong. I'm more than happy to see you of Beach visit my humble abode. Why would I hold a grudge against you? When Yi Chen heard this, he couldn't help but smile and say, If that's the case, I'm relieved. You of Beach, please come in. Chen Gong glanced at Guijia and Dian Wei, who were behind Yi Chen, and bowed to Yi Chen. Yi Chen nodded and walked toward the entrance. Guijia and Dian Wei followed closely behind. Chen Gong followed closely behind. Before long, Yi Chen arrived at the main hall of the Chen residence and sat down on the main seat. The maids who had been waiting in the main hall hurriedly served Yi Chen tea. After taking a sip, Yi Chen looked at Chen Gong and asked, Gontai, what do you think I'm here for? Chen Gong was stunned. He did not expect Yi Chen to be so direct. After a short pause, Chen Gong stood up and bowed. You of Beach, if I'm not wrong, you of Beach are here to recruit me? That's right, that's exactly the case. I have always valued the talented people of the Great Han Dynasty, and Gontai is one of them. I wonder if Gontai is interested? When Yi Chen heard this, he lightly smiled and asked. Yi Chen had come out this time to make a big haul. There was naturally no need for him to waste time on historical officials and generals, nor was there a need for him to do so. It had to be known that with Yi Chen's current status, taking the initiative to recruit historical officials and generals was an act of treating the wise with respect. If these historical officials and generals were still unwilling to follow him, then Yi Chen's chances of recruiting them were practically zero. In this sort of situation, Yi Chen did not need to waste his breath. He could just give up and go find the next one. Of course, Yi Chen would not hesitate to kill off those officials and generals who were unwilling to follow Yi Chen. This was not to say that Yi Chen was afraid of encountering trouble during the struggle for hegemony. It was to save time and effort. It had to be known that with the current combat power of the reincarnation Immortal City's army, even if all the feudal officials of the Great Han Empire worked together, they would not be able to stop Yi Chen's army for even a minute. However, even so, Yi Chen did not want to see those officials and generals who had refused to follow him turn against him in the end. Therefore, Yichen's choice was very ruthless and domineering. If they did not follow him, then he would kill them. Hearing Yichen's words, Qingong immediately bowed solemnly toward Yichen and said without hesitation, "I'm sorry. Qingong and Qingongtai of the Eastern Martial Sun, pay respects to my lord." Ding! Congratulations to player Yichen for successfully recruiting a first-class historical official, Qingong, courtesy name Gongtai. Special reward to player Yichen, 1,000 gold coins. Yichen smiled when he heard the system's notification. He stood up, walked over to Qingong, and helped him up. "It's my great fortune to have Gongtai as my follower." Qingong smiled when he heard Yichen's words. He quickly bowed to Yichen and said loudly, "It's my great fortune to be able to follow my lord." Yichen's words were simple, but they were very pleasing to Qingong's ears. After all, civil officials and generals all liked to gain the approval of the lord they followed. And Yichen's words revealed his approval of Qingong. Otherwise, Qingong wouldn't have become so excited just because of Yichen's words. Yichen patted Qingong's shoulder and said, "Go and pack up. Then bring your family and leave for the reincarnation immortal city." Qingong was stunned when he heard this. Qingong was stunned, not because he was leaving, but because of the reincarnation immortal city that Yichen had mentioned. Qingong would not have reacted much if someone else had said this. However, it was Yichen who had said it. Qingong could not help but think about it. After all, the word immortal was not something that could be casually given. Of course, this was not important. What was important was that the news of Yichen's reincarnation city in Yuzhou being smashed into ruins by a giant palm had spread throughout the world. Now, Yichen, the Prince Yu of Han who had disappeared for a period of time, had not only reappeared, but also mentioned the existence of the reincarnation immortal city. He was obviously telling Qingong that the reincarnation immortal city was not Yichen's headquarters, but the reincarnation immortal city. After a short pause, Qingong regained his senses and hurriedly bowed to Yichen. "Yes, my lord." As soon as Qingong finished his words, the system notification rang out. Ding! Congratulations to player Yichen. Qingong's loyalty has increased by 10 points. You have become a loyal follower. As soon as the system notification ended, Yichen could not help but smile. Not bad, not bad. Another loyal follower. Qingong's loyalty had something to do with Yichen's status and prestige. Of course, it was also related to the fact that Yichen had mentioned the existence of the reincarnation immortal city without hesitation. After all, Yichen had mentioned the reincarnation immortal city directly, which meant that Yichen had absolute trust in Qingong. This was what Qingong wanted to see the most. Otherwise, Qingong would not have been so loyal to him. At the thought of this, Yichen smiled and nodded. Then he said, "Quick, pack up. Then gather the Qi family members and head to the reincarnation immortal city." "Yes, my lord." Qingong nodded heavily when he heard this. After he finished speaking, he went straight to the back residence. At this moment, the world notification rang out. Ding! Congratulations to player Yichen for successfully subduing the top historical officials, Qingong and Qingongtai. Special reward to player Yichen, 1,000 gold taels. Chapter 1230. The world announcement was repeated 3 times in a row, and the entire world channel instantly exploded. Oh shit. Oh shit. I told you, Yu of Gojoseon is going to recruit a lot of civil and military officials. Did you see that? He just recruited Zhu Shou, and now he recruited Qingong. Oh shit. If Yu of Gojoseon recruited Qingong, then wouldn't Lu Bu be in trouble? You're joking. You make it sound like Lu Bu will have an easy time if Yu of Gojoseon doesn't recruit Qingong. Don't forget, what's Yu of Gojoseon's level? What's the level of Yu of Gojoseon's subordinates? Oh shit, if you didn't mention it, I would have forgotten about this. It seems like any random soldier under Yu of Gojoseon's command can crush Lu Bu to death. This isn't seems, it's the truth. Don't forget, Yi Yu of Gojoseon's army displayed a powerful force when they faced the werewolves and vampires of the Luo denomination in the Western continent. That kind of existence has long surpassed a saint-level general. Okay? Oh shit. No way. Surpassing a saint-level general? Doesn't that mean that all of Yi Yu of Gojoseon's soldiers have advanced to the mortal evolution state? That's right. Otherwise, how do you think those vampires and werewolves didn't hurt Yi Yu of Gojoseon's soldiers even after they were all killed? Oh shit, if that's the case, Yi Yu of Gojoseon doesn't need to recruit any civil and military officials at all. He can sweep the world with just those soldiers. I don't know about that. Anyway, I feel that Yi Yu of Gojoseon's decision to recruit civil and military officials isn't a random one. There must be some other purpose. I think so too. I just don't know why Yi Yu of Gojoseon is doing this. It doesn't matter what it is. What's important is that we all behave ourselves. Don't go looking for those civil and military officials, and don't even try to subdue them. Otherwise, I feel that Yi Yu of Gojoseon will go on a killing spree because of this. Damn it. I don't need you to remind me of this, okay? I've never thought of subduing those famous civil and military officials. Besides, I know my own limits and know that I can't subdue them. Why should I offend Yi Yu of Gojoseon because of this? Hee, Boss Yi-chun is the most awesome. There's no one like him. All of you should know what's good for you. Go find some ordinary natives who have some strength or some pretty female natives and subdue them. That way, you won't anger Boss Yi-chun. Damn it. Although I don't like you, damn it. What you said is true. I'm already trying to subdue a village girl. TSK, it doesn't seem too difficult. Damn it, you pervert. What's the use of subduing women? If you want to subdue them, you should subdue hunters with strength. The World Channel was abuzz with activity. Yi-chun glanced at it and couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. It would be best if no one tried to snatch civil and military officials from me. But if someone did, then don't blame me for being ruthless. Just as Yi-chun was thinking this, a loud shout suddenly came from the street. Bing Province Governor Dong Zhuo has been summoned to the capital. Idlers, please leave. Hearing this, Yi-chun was stunned. Bing Province Governor Dong Zhuo. Why is this bastard passing through Dongguiyang? As soon as Yi-chun had this thought, Guojia glanced at the door and bowed, saying, I'm sorry. Your Highness, Dong Zhuo has a bad reputation. He's probably coming to the capital on Great General He Jin's orders, not young Emperor Liu Bian's. Feng Xiao is right. Yi-chun came back to his senses and nodded. Then, he looked at the street and said, Chaos is about to descend. Chaos is about to descend. It's all on Dong Zhuo. Your Highness, are you saying that Dong Zhuo will? Guijiao paused for a moment before asking. Yi-chun nodded and said, that's right. However, the root of the chaos doesn't lie with Dong Zhuo. He's just a catalyst that will speed up the destruction of the Great Han. Your Highness, shall we send a message to Second Prince Liu Xie? Guojia suddenly thought of something and hurriedly bowed. Guojia naturally knew that Liu Xie was Yi-chun's slave. He would tell Liu Xie that Dong Zhuo was coming to the capital and ask him to arrange the spies in the reincarnation Immortal City to avoid being discovered by Dong Zhuo. Of course, the most important thing was to warn Liu Xie not to leak Yi-chun's information. After all, Yi-chun was now watching from the sidelines and waiting for the world to fall into chaos. If Liu Xie leaked Yi-chun's information, the ambitious dukes of the Great Han Empire would definitely not dare to make trouble. They would all wait for Yi-chun to come out and take charge of the situation. Once such a situation occurred, Yi-chun would no longer have the righteousness to conquer the world. This result would not benefit Yi-chun at all. Hearing Guojia's words, Yi-chun smiled and said, no need. Liu Xie won't dare to act rashly. Liu Xie was Yi-chun's slave. To be precise, he was a slave that Yi-chun took in with the ancient contract book. With the slave contract, Liu Xie wouldn't dare to plot against Yi-chun even if he was given 10,000 guts. Otherwise, the slave contract would let him know what cruelty was and what it meant to live a life worse than death. Hearing Yi-chun's words, Guojia was stunned for a moment. Then he realized that Yi-chun, the Lord, already had a plan in mind. Thinking of this, Guojia couldn't help smiling. Then he bowed to Yi Chun and said, "Your Highness is wise." Hearing Guojia's words, Yi Chun glared at Guojia and said, "Don't flatter me. By the way, Feng Xiao, have you heard of Sun Jian?" "Sun Jian? You mean the invading General Sun Jian?" Sun Wentai. Guojia was slightly stunned and asked. Hearing this, Yi Chun nodded and said, "That's him." After hearing Yi Chun's answer, Guojia hesitated for a moment and asked, "Your Highness, do you intend to subdue him?" Hearing this, Yi Chun nodded and said, "I heard that this person is a descendant of Sun Wu and is rather talented. It would be best if I could subdue him, but if not, it doesn't matter. My lord, it is true that Sun Jian is talented. However, according to the information that Jia has gathered, Sun Jian should have the heart of a warlord. It will be extremely difficult to subdue him." When Guojia heard this, he nodded and then bowed. Hearing this, Yi Chun nodded and said, "Since that's the case, let's just give up on him. Your Highness, are you suddenly asking about Sun Jian because you want to subdue him?" Hearing this, Guojia suddenly thought of something. Then he looked at Yi Chun strangely and bowed. Hearing this, Yi Chun glared at Guojia and said, "You talk too much. You talk too much. However, you are correct. Your lord's target is not Sun Jian. Instead, it is Sun Jian's daughter, Sun Shangxiang." Chapter 12:31. Guojia was stunned by Yi Chun's words, and then he hastily bowed. "Master, Sun Jian has the heart of a duke, and he has the ability to do so. As long as the world is in chaos, he will definitely obtain a portion of the great Han dynasty's fate and become a duke. Although his daughter, Sun Shangxiang, is one of the best candidates for the matriarch, Master, you cannot give up on the great Han dynasty's fate because of Sun Shangxiang. Please reconsider. With Lu Hong's death, the Dongzhuo rebellion would begin, and the great Han Empire's fate would automatically be divided among the various dukes. And Sun Jian was one of the dukes set by the system. If Yi Chun wanted to obtain all of the great Han Empire's fate, then Yi Chun would have to eliminate all of these dukes. Otherwise, Yi Chun's plan to gather all of the great Han dynasty's fate would be affected. And this was the reason why Guojia had hurriedly advised him. He did not want to see his master, Yi Chun, give up his empire because of a woman. Yi Chun helplessly shook his head and said, "Feng Xiao, you misunderstand. Feng Xiao, you've misunderstood. I won't give up the great Han Empire's providence just because of Sun Shangxiang. However, your master, I, cannot find a suitable solution at the moment, which is why I asked you this. More specifically, I want to know if this Sun Jian is able to block his path before he can rise to power, force him to submit, and then shatter his vassal heart and sever his path to becoming a vassal. Yi Chun walked the path of the sovereign Tao of fate, and he would not give up even the slightest bit of the great Han dynasty's fate. And Yi Chun did not want Sun Shangxiang because of her beauty. Of course, Yi Chun did like Sun Shangxiang, but the main reason Yi Chun wanted Sun Shangxiang was to bring out the four great characteristics of the Copper Sparrow Pavilion: song, dance, peace, war, and revival. Although it was a little selfish, it was the truth. Plus, Yi Chun wouldn't change his plans just because it was difficult. The four characteristics of the Copper Sparrow Pavilion would be of great help to Yi Chun's Samsara Empire. For example, the first feature, singing and dancing, could make the Samsara Empire that Yi Chun was going to establish soon maintain a high level of popularity. The second feature, war stopping, allowed Yi Chun's Samsara Empire to be invincible for 3 days when they were in danger after ascending to the untainted world. As for the third characteristic, war song, it could increase the strength of Yi Chun's subordinates and their army by several times. As for the final characteristic, resurrection, it allowed Yi Chun's generals or soldiers to come back to life after they died. Even if their bodies were damaged or even completely gone, it would still work. This was something that the Enlightenment Tea and other resurrection props didn't have. It could be said that the Copper Sparrow Pavilion was an extremely heaven-defying building that was of great use to Yi Chun. How could Yi Chun not want to use all four characteristics? However, If he wanted to use the 4 characteristics of the Copper Sparrow Pavilion, he had to have enough beauties. And Sun Shangxiang was a historical beauty recognized by the system. Moreover, she was ranked among the top beauties. It was also for this reason that Yi Chun set Sun Shangxiang as his target. Whether it was selfish, self-interested, or lecherous, Yi Chun planned to do so. As long as there was a chance, Yi Chun wouldn't let go of any historical beauty. Of course, the prerequisite was that the historical beauty had to be a virgin. Otherwise, Yi Chun wouldn't want her. Of course, this wasn't important. What was important was that Sun Shangxiang was one of the historical beauties. Moreover, she was a top-class historical beauty. However, if he wanted to subdue Sun Shangxiang, he couldn't avoid contact with Sun Jian, one of the future feudal lords. Once he contacted Sun Jian and subdued Sun Jian, Sun Shangxiang would basically become Yi Chun's woman. However, in this way, Yi Chun wouldn't be able to get the fate of heaven and earth that the system automatically gave to Sun Jian. After that, Yi Chun's plan to plunder all the fate of heaven and earth of the Great Han Empire would be affected. This was a dead end. Otherwise, Yi Chun wouldn't have not gone to Sun Shangxiang until now. It wasn't that he didn't want to, but that he was in a dilemma. After all, Yi Chun couldn't kill Sun Jian in front of Sun Shangxiang. If Yi Chun really killed Sun Jian for the fate of heaven and earth, Sun Shangxiang would never be subdued by Yi Chun. Even if Yi Chun forced her, Sun Shangxiang would find a chance to commit suicide or simply submit to Yi Chun. Then, she would stab Yi Chun's Samsara Empire a few times to take revenge on Yi Chun. This situation was not what Yi Chun wanted to see. It was precisely because of this that Yi Chun asked Guijia if there was a way to stop Sun Jian from becoming a marquis, to prevent him from becoming a marquis. In this way, the fate of heaven and earth of the Great Han Empire would not automatically flow to Sun Jian with the start of Dong's rebellion. Sun Jian didn't have the fate of heaven and earth of the Great Han Empire, so Yi Chun didn't have to kill him or Sun Jian's son. In this way, Yi Chun could smoothly subdue Sun Shangxiang. As soon as Yi Chun finished his words, Guijia immediately breathed a sigh of relief. Then, he bowed to Yi Chun and said, "Master, this is very difficult. My lord, this matter is extremely difficult, but it's not impossible. My lord, you could try starting with Sun Shangxiang." Hearing this, Yi Chun couldn't help but be stunned. Then he looked at Guijia and asked, "Sun Shangxiang?" "Yes." It said that Sun Jian's daughter, Sun Shangxiang, is deeply loved by Sun Jian's wife. So is Sun Jian. If you can persuade Sun Shangxiang, perhaps Sun Jian will give up his desire to be a feudal lord and submit to you. When Yi Chun heard this, his eyes couldn't help but light up, and then he said, "In that case, let's do it." As soon as Yi Chun finished speaking, a large number of footsteps were heard. It was Chun Gong and his family, carrying their luggage, walking towards the hall. Hearing this, Yi Chun coughed a few times and then looked straight at the door. Before long, Chun Gong and his family arrived at the hall. As soon as they entered, Chun Gong and his family bowed solemnly to Yi Chun and said, "Greetings, master." Hearing this, Yi Chun chuckled and nodded. Then, with a wave of his right hand, the space beside him instantly distorted. Pointing at the distorted space, Yi Chun said, "Gongsun, you can go straight to Gongsun City. Gongtai, you can directly enter the reincarnation immortal city. At that time, you can look for Mi Zhu and Mi Zizhou. He will arrange a place for you to stay." "Yes, master." After hearing this, Chun Gong immediately recovered from the shock of seeing the distorted space. He then bowed toward Yi Chun and said loudly. Hearing this, Yi Chun chuckled and nodded. Seeing this, Chun Gong's family hurriedly bowed again to Yi Chun and then followed Chun Gong into the distorted space. Before long, they disappeared without a trace. Seeing this, Yi Chun looked at Guojia and Dian Wei and said, "Wait a moment. The two of you, wait here for a moment." "Yes, master." When Dian Wei and Guojia heard this, they smiled at each other and bowed in unison. Chapter 1232. When Yi Chun heard this, he smiled. Then, with a thought, the space in front of him instantly distorted. After glancing at the distorted space, Yi-Chen stepped into it and disappeared. In Fujian County of Wu County, in a remote alley, the space suddenly distorted. Then, Yi-Chen took a step forward and appeared in the alley. After glancing at the empty alley, Yi-Chen walked out and headed for the largest residence in Fujian County, the Sun Manor. On the street, people came and went, and peddlers shouted to and fro. Yi-Chen's appearance immediately attracted the attention of many people. It couldn't be helped. Yi-Chen was young and handsome. Moreover, he was dressed in luxurious clothes. It was obvious that he was the son of a noble family. It was difficult for such an existence not to attract attention on the street. Which family's young master is this? How could he be so handsome? I set up my stall every day and have seen countless people, but I've never seen this young master. He must have come from somewhere else. He's probably visiting his relatives and friends. Look at how he walks. He has an extraordinary aura. One look, and you can tell that he's not the son of an ordinary family. The people on the street discussed in low voices, but Yi-Chen chose to ignore them. The discussions of the people on the street didn't have any malicious intent. Yi-Chen naturally wouldn't get angry because of this. After walking for a while, Yi-Chen arrived at the entrance of a jewelry store. Before Yi-Chen could enter, a sharp-eyed shop assistant came out and welcomed him. Young master, this small shop has a complete collection of jewelry. If you want to buy anything, this little one can take you there directly. I'm just looking around. When Yi-Chen heard this, he glanced at the shop assistant and casually tossed him a gold coin. When the shop assistant saw this, he was stunned. It wasn't that the shop assistant hadn't seen generous customers before, but this was the first time he had seen a generous customer like Yi-Chen, who gave him a gold coin as soon as he entered. After coming back to his senses, the waiter hurriedly reached out to catch the gold coin and then bowed with a fawning expression. Young master, please come in. Take a look at whatever you want. If you have any instructions, please don't hesitate to tell me. I will do my best to fulfill young master's instructions. When Yi-Chen heard this, he smiled faintly and said, You don't have to follow me. I can just watch on my own. All right, young master, please come in. Be careful of the steps. When the waiter heard this, he immediately smiled flatteringly and bowed. After that, he leaned on the doorsill and placed his hand under the doorsill, as if he was afraid that Yi-Chen would trip over the doorsill. When Yi-Chen saw this, he sighed inwardly and went straight in. The jewelry store didn't look very big from the outside, but once you entered, you would find that there was another world inside the store. To be more precise, the jewelry store looked as big as 3 rooms, but in fact, it was as big as 4 rooms. After a brief moment of surprise, Yi-Chen walked straight towards a young girl who was about 16 years old. She was wearing a silk dress embroidered with golden threads. Yi-Chen's arrival immediately attracted the attention of the servant girl beside the young girl. However, when the servant girl saw Yi-Chen's appearance, she was stunned on the spot. For a moment, she actually forgot to remind the young girl that there was a stranger approaching. When the servant girl came back to her senses, Yi-Chen was already by the young girl's side. At this moment, the servant girl immediately gave Yi-Chen a pleading look, hoping that Yi-Chen would not presumptuously disturb the young girl. Sensing the meaning in the servant girl's gaze, Yi-Chen couldn't help but smile. At this moment, the young girl, who sensed that someone had come to her side, immediately put down the jade hairpin that she had been looking at for a long time and turned to look at Yi-Chen. You are, when the young girl said this, she suddenly froze, and then her eyes suddenly widened. You have beach. As soon as the young girl's exclamation fell, a faint fragrance immediately rushed toward Yi-Chen. Sensing this, Yi-Chen couldn't help but be stunned. Her mouth had a fragrance. She was indeed a wonderful person, but how did Sun Shangxiang recognize him? The young girl was Sun Shangxiang, the target of Yi-Chen's visit to Fujian County of Wu Commandery. However, Yi-Chen didn't expect that Sun Shangxiang would recognize Yi-Chen before they even started to get to know each other. After a brief moment of surprise, Yi-Chen nodded with a smile and said, Yes. The news of Yi-Chen's bizarre disappearance and the destruction of Samsara City had spread throughout the Great Han Dynasty. Logically speaking, Yi-Chen should continue to hide and not let anyone know. Otherwise, once the news spread, the various feudal lords would definitely continue to hide, including Dongjua. However, the problem was that Yi Chun had come here to take Sun Shangxiang as his disciple. Therefore, Yi Chun couldn't hide anything from Sun Shangxiang. Otherwise, all his previous efforts would be in vain because of this. Yi Chun didn't want to see this happen. As soon as Yi Chun finished speaking, Sun Shangxiang was instantly shocked. She hurriedly covered her mouth with her right hand, afraid that she would cry out. Seeing Sun Shangxiang's reaction, Yi Chun couldn't help but smile. He said, "Let's go to a secluded place and talk. How about that?" Sun Shangxiang was stunned. She didn't expect that Yi Chun, who had just met you of Beach, would invite her to a secluded place by Yi Chun. After a brief moment of shock, Sun Shangxiang nodded subconsciously and replied, "Oh, okay." When Yi Chun heard this, he smiled and pointed at Sun Shangxiang's servant girl. With a buzz, Sun Shangxiang's servant girl fainted in the blink of an eye. Lord Yu of Beach, Sun Shangxiang, who saw her personal servant girl fainted after being pointed at by Yi Chun, was stunned and hurriedly cried out. When Yi Chun heard this, he smiled and said, "It doesn't matter. I'm just erasing her memory of seeing me." When Sun Shangxiang heard this, she was a little confused and called out. When Yi Chun heard this, he couldn't help but smile. Then he took Sun Shangxiang's right hand, took a step forward, and disappeared. On the top of a mountain outside Fujian County, the space suddenly distorted. Then, Yi Chun and Sun Shangxiang appeared directly there. Sun Shangxiang, who sensed the sudden change in the environment, was stunned. After looking left and right, her body suddenly stiffened. Lord Yu of Beach, what do you want to say to me?" When Yi Chun saw Sun Shangxiang's nervous expression, he shook his head helplessly and said, "Don't be afraid, I won't eat you." When Sun Shangxiang heard this, she secretly glanced at Yi Chun. After confirming that Yi Chun didn't have any bad intentions, she immediately heaved a sigh of relief. In the next second, Sun Shangxiang said softly, "Lord Yu of Beach, can you let me first?" When Yi Chun heard this, he gestured for her to go ahead. Just now, Yi Chun had pointed at the servant girl and said that he could erase her memory. Then, he took Sun Shangxiang and took her to the top of the mountain outside the city. This was quite a shock to Sun Shangxiang, so she couldn't be blamed for saying first. Of course, the biggest shock wasn't this. Instead, it was that the disappeared Yu of Beach, Yi Chun, suddenly appeared and directly looked for her, Sun Shangxiang. When Sun Shangxiang saw that Yi Chun had agreed, she sat down on a large rock and fell into a daze. Time slowly passed, and Sun Shangxiang's heartbeat finally stabilized. Only at this moment did Sun Shangxiang stand up and bow to Yi Chun. She said, "I, Sun Shangxiang, pay my respects to Lord Yu of Beach." Chapter 1233. When Yi Chun heard Sun Shangxiang's words, he chuckled and nodded. "Calm down, Sun Shangxiang's face reddened when she heard Yi Chun's question, and then she softly replied. When Yi Chun heard this, he smiled again. Then he walked straight to Sun Shangxiang and asked, "What are you doing? Do you have someone in mind?" Sun Shangxiang was stunned when she heard this, and then she cried out in surprise. "Someone in mind? Do you have someone in mind?" When Yi Chun heard Sun Shangxiang's cry of surprise, he smiled slightly and asked again, No, there's someone in mind? Someone in mind?" When Yi Chun heard this, he immediately frowned. Sun Shangxiang's answer was not what Yi Chun wanted to hear. Otherwise, Yi Chun wouldn't have frowned. When Sun Shangxiang, who was sitting on the rock, saw Yi Chun frown, she was shocked and hurriedly shouted, "The person in mind is Yu of Beach, Lord Beach. Don't be angry." When Sun Shangxiang said this, her face immediately turned red. She quickly lowered her head, not daring to look at Yi Chun. "The person in mind is me?" Yi Chun was a little dumbfounded as he thought this, and then his eyes suddenly lit up. Damn, I'm actually jealous of myself. But then again, why would Sun Shangxiang like me? She hasn't even seen me before. Oh, I almost forgot. The women of this era really do seem to like someone like me. Yi Chun was young, handsome, and elegant. He also had a noble status and was recognized as the overlord of the Great Han Empire. Such an existence was extremely lethal to the women of this era. I originally wanted to spend more effort to win over Sun Shangxiang, but this is great. It saved me a lot of trouble. Thinking of this, Yi Chen couldn't help but smile. Sun Shangxiang, who was secretly watching Yi Chen, saw Yi Chen smile and blushed again. Her two white hands couldn't help but rub the corners of her clothes. She was so shy and nervous. Seeing Sun Shangxiang's action, Yi Chen couldn't help but smile. Then, he walked up to Sun Shangxiang and hugged her. At this moment, Sun Shangxiang's entire body stiffened, and then she collapsed in Yi Chen's arms. Seeing Sun Shangxiang's appearance, Yi Chen couldn't help but smile. Then, he lowered his head and kissed Sun Shangxiang's forehead. Yi Chen was satisfied with this kiss, but Sun Shangxiang's eyes rolled back, and she fainted. What the hell? Do you have to be like this thinking of this? Yi Chen hurriedly transferred a wisp of spiritual energy to Sun Shangxiang. In the next second, Sun Shangxiang woke up. You, Lord you of Beach, don't bully this concubine. As soon as Sun Shangxiang finished speaking with a red face and a racing heart, Yi Chen couldn't help but smile and say, "How is this bullying? What kind of bullying is this? This king has come here especially for you." Then you still have to propose. How can you be so direct? Sun Shangxiang's heart beat even faster when she heard this, and then she said shyly. When Yi Chen heard this, he gently patted Sun Shangxiang's back and put her down. Then, he said seriously, the proposal needs to be proposed. The marriage proposal is a must, but before that, you need to do one more thing. What is it? Sun Shangxiang asked in confusion after hearing Yi Chen's words. When Yi Chen heard this, he glanced at Sun Shangxiang and said seriously, "Persuade your father to dispel your father's will. Persuade your father to dispel his ambition. Otherwise, in the future, he and your two brothers will definitely become dead souls under this king's blade." I have already tried to persuade him. My father said that you of Beach is not around, and his great ambitions are promising, but now that you of Beach has appeared, as long as you of Beach, come home with me and see my father, this matter will be resolved. Sun Shangxiang suddenly shivered when she heard this, and then she hurriedly said. When Yi Chen heard this, he couldn't help but be stunned. He then looked at Sun Shangxiang and asked, "You already said this?" "Yes, I don't want my father to go against you of Beach, and I don't want to see my father and older brothers killed by you of Beach." When Sun Shangxiang heard this, she blushed slightly and said. When Yi Chen heard this, he couldn't help but smile. Then he picked Sun Shangxiang up and kissed her. As expected, you are one of this prince's wives. Ha ha, wife. When Sun Shangxiang, who was blushing for being kissed by Yi Chen, heard this, her eyes suddenly lit up, and she asked with a face full of disbelief. When Yi Chen heard this, he stroked Sun Shangxiang's hair and lowered his head to take a deep breath of Sun Shangxiang's fragrance. He then said, "This prince's partners are all official wives. There are no concubines. However, the prerequisite is that they don't cause trouble or fight. Otherwise, this prince won't spoil them. This prince will directly demote them to concubine and take back everything. I won't fight or cause trouble." When Sun Shangxiang heard this, she hurriedly shouted. As soon as she finished shouting, her face turned red. When Yi Chen heard this, he laughed loudly and said, "Remember that. Now, let's go to your house and see your father." Yes. When Sun Shangxiang heard this, she was immediately overjoyed and hurriedly nodded in agreement. When Yi Chen saw this, he couldn't help but smile. Then he took Sun Shangxiang's hand and took a step forward, disappearing from sight. Fuchin County Immortal City, Sun Mansion, Great Hall. The space suddenly distorted, and then Yi Chen, who was holding Sun Shangxiang's hand, appeared here. At this moment, a cry of surprise was suddenly heard. "Xiangxiang, greetings, mother. Greetings, father." When Sun Shangxiang heard the cry of surprise, she hurriedly let go of Yi Chen's hand and then bowed to the woman who had cried out in surprise, as well as to Sun Jian, who had fixed his gaze on Yi Chen. When Sun Shangxiang finished speaking, Sun Jian, whose face was filled with shock and vigilance because of Yi Chen's sudden appearance with Sun Shangxiang, suddenly thought of something. He hurriedly pulled his wife away from her seat and went straight to Yi Chen. He bowed and said, "Sun Jian and Sun Wentai greet you of Beach, Lord Sun Jian." Obviously, Sun Jian, who had never seen Yi Chen before, had already recognized Yi Chen's identity. When Madame Sun, who had a confused expression and didn't know what Sun Jian meant, heard this, she was immediately stunned. Then, she hurriedly bowed to Yi Chen and said, "This concubine, Madame Sun, greets you of Beach, Lord Sun." When Yi Chen heard this, he nodded with a smile and said, "I came here for 2 reasons. The first is to recruit, and the second is to propose marriage. What do you think, Wentai?" When Yi Chen finished speaking, Sun Jian was first stunned. Then he bowed to Yi Chen without hesitation and said loudly, "Sun Jian and Sun Wentai greet the Lord." As soon as Sun Jian finished speaking, the system's notifications sounded. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chen for successfully subduing the first-rate historical generals, Sun Jian and Sun Wentai. Because of their special identities, player Yi Chen is specially rewarded with innate attribute points x10, gold x 1000. Chapter 1234. As soon as the system's notification ended, Yi Chen couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. F***CK. He really succeeded. Sun Jian was one of the future vassals. Although he died early, his status as a vassal was real. Yi Chen wanted to subdue Sun Jian, so the difficulty was as high as the sky. However, what Yi Chen didn't expect was that he would succeed in getting in touch with Sun Shangxiang first and then Sun Jian later. Although he was a little surprised, the pleasant surprise was real. After all, if Sun Jian surrendered, all the obstacles to getting Sun Shangxiang would be removed. Thinking of this, Yi Chen hurriedly helped Sun Jian up and then bowed seriously. Son-in-law pays his respects to father-in-law and mother-in-law. As soon as Yi Chen said this, Sun Shangxiang's face suddenly turned red. Sun Jian and Mrs. Sun hurriedly helped Yi Chen up. You can't. It's my daughter's fortune that the Lord has taken a fancy to her. The Lord must not be so courteous. That's a different matter. I'm a lord outside, but at home, I'm the son-in-law. I still have to salute." Yi Chen smiled and said seriously, "Husband, don't say such things. My dear son-in-law, quickly take a seat." Mrs. Sun smiled when she heard this. After saying that, she took Yi Chen's hand and sat on the main seat. Yi Chen didn't refuse. Although Yi Chen would accept Sun Shangxiang, Yi Chen was the lord. If he wanted to sit, he would sit on the main seat. This was also etiquette and didn't conflict with anything else. Just as Yi Chen sat down, 2 young men came to the hall one after another. As soon as they entered, they were stunned. At this moment, Sun Jian hurriedly looked at the 2 young men who entered and scolded them. "Bastard, why aren't you coming forward to greet him? This is your father, you of Beach, Yi Chen." Previously, Sun Jian had the intention to compete for hegemony. However, with the rise of Yi Chen, Sun Jian realized that he couldn't compete with Yi Chen. Hence, he gave up on this idea. But with Yi Chen's disappearance, this thought appeared in Sun Jian's mind again. However, Yi Chen's sudden appearance had once again shattered Sun Jian's thoughts. In addition, Yi Chen's marriage proposal had shattered the last line of defense in Sun Jian's heart. Thus, he completely accepted his fate and chose to follow Yi Chen. Since he had already made his choice, Sun Jian naturally did not want his 2 sons to be unruly and rashly contradict Yi Chen. Otherwise, if Yi Chen was enraged, the Sun clan would most likely be exterminated. Sun Jian didn't want to see such an outcome. That was why he hurriedly reprimanded the 2 young men. To be more precise, the 2 young men who just entered were Sun Jian's 2 sons, Sun Su and Sun Quan. After hearing Sun Jian's words, Sun Su and Sun Quan were both stunned. After recovering from a shock, they exchanged glances with each other, then hastily bowed to Yi Chen and said loudly, "Sun Su and Sun Quan greet you of Beach, you of Gojoseon." When Yi Chen heard this, he couldn't help but frown. However, He immediately calmed down and nodded with a smile. Yi Chen frowned because Sun Quan addressed him as Yi Yu of Gojoseon and not as Yu of Beach. At first glance, there was no difference. However, most of the time, the title Yi Yu of Gojoseon was used by players to address Yi Chun. Although there were natives, they rarely addressed Yi Chun as such. This point could be seen from how Sun Jian and Sun Su addressed Yi Chun as Yu of Beach. To be more precise, calling Yi Chun as Yi Yu of Gojoseon was not as respectful as Yu of Beach. Otherwise, Yi Chun wouldn't have frowned. Sun Quan was unwilling in his heart. Or was he young and impetuous? Or, just as Yi Chun was thinking about this, Sun Su suddenly took a step forward and then looked at Yi Chun with fanatical eyes, bowed and said, Sun Su is willing to follow my lord. Please take me in. Sun Su had heard of Yi Chun's various deeds and had long admired him. There was no other way. Yi Chun was young, and his strength was unrivaled in the world. He was able to lead troops and win every battle. Not only did he conquer the Yellow Turban, exterminate the monster race, but he also conquered foreign countries and unified the world. Such an existence was the idol of all the people who worshipped the strong. Even Sun Su was no exception. Now that Sun Su has seen Yi Chun and learned the fact that Sun Jian has surrendered to him, the worship from the bottom of his heart also erupted. Therefore, Sun Su directly chose to recognize Yi Chun as his master. When Sun Su's words fell, the system prompt suddenly sounded. Ding! The historical general Sun Su wants to recognize you as his master. Do you accept? When the system prompt ended, Yi Chun did not hesitate to accept. Sun Jian had already submitted. If Sun Su did not accept, it would be a waste. Yi Chun would not refuse. After all, Sun Su was a historical general, and he was not Sun Quan. If it was Sun Quan, Yi Chun might hesitate, but Yi Chun would not hesitate to accept Sun Su. When Yi Chun made his decision, the system prompt suddenly sounded. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chun for obtaining the loyalty of the historical generals Sun Su and Sun Bofu. As soon as the system notification ended, Yi Chun stood up and walked towards Sun Su. He helped Sun Su up and patted his shoulder, then said, Sun Su, Sun Su, Sun Su. It is my great fortune to have Wen Tai and Bofu as my followers. From now on, I will have 2 more fierce generals under my command. After Yi Chun said this, he looked at Sun Jian and said, When you arrive at the reincarnation immortal city, each of you can choose 100,000 soldiers and horses. When Yi Chun finished speaking, Sun Jian and Sun Su's eyes suddenly lit up, and then they bowed to Yi Chun and said loudly, Thank you for your trust, my lord. We pledge our lives to follow my lord. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chun, Sun Jian's loyalty +10, promoted to die-hard fan. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chun, Sun Su's loyalty +10, promoted to die-hard fan. When the system prompt ended, Yi Chun suddenly smiled. Good, good, now I can be completely relieved. There is no possibility of betrayal from die-hard fan. When Yi Chun thought of this, Mrs. Sun looked at Sun Quan with an ugly expression and then scolded in a low voice. Quana? When Sun Quan heard this, he hurriedly looked at Yi Chun and bowed. Sun Quan is also willing to follow Yi Yu of Gojoseon. I beg Lord, Yu of Beach to take me in. When Yi Chun heard this, he looked at Sun Quan and asked, Who are you? When Yi Chun finished speaking, Sun Quan's expression changed. When Yi Chun saw this, his eyes narrowed and a cold light flashed in them. Sure enough, there was something wrong with Sun Quan. Otherwise, his expression would not have changed. Most importantly, he had already said that he would submit, but the system prompt did not appear. This bastard should be a player, not Sun Quan. When Yi Chun thought of this, Sun Jian hurriedly looked at Sun Quan and scolded, Why aren't you apologizing to my lord? I'm sorry, Lord Yu of Beach. When Sun Quan heard this, he suddenly shivered and hurriedly looked at Yi Chun and bowed. Lord Yu of Beach, this. When Mrs. Sun saw that Yi Chun's gaze was getting colder, her expression changed drastically, and she hurriedly shouted. Sun Shangxiang suddenly thought of something and stood up with a bang. Father, he's not second brother. He wanted to sneak into the bathroom last night. If my maid hadn't seen it, he would have succeeded. At first, I didn't believe it and thought that the maid was wrong. But looking at his behavior today, he's completely different from the second brother in the past. He's definitely not second brother. When Sun Jian heard this, his tiger-like eyes widened, and he walked directly in front of Sun Quan. He grabbed Sun Quan's neck and shouted sternly, "What did you do to my Quan? Cough, 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 cough. Let go, let go. I'm Sun Quan. I'm Sun Quan." Sun Quan coughed a few times and then shouted with a red face. Chapter 12:35. After Yi Chun heard Sun Quan's words, he smiled coldly. Then he went straight to Sun Quan, raised his right hand, and pressed it on Sun Quan's head. In the next second, Yi Chun's mind moved, and his divine sense was instantly released. In the blink of an eye, it surged into Sun Quan's mind. When Madame Sun saw this, her face turned pale, and she hurriedly shouted, "You Lord Beach! Shut up! Don't affect the Lord!" Sun Jian glared fiercely at Madame Sun, who loved her son, and then shouted in a low voice. After a few breaths, Yi Chun retracted his right hand. Then he looked gloomily at Sun Quan, who was sweating profusely, and said, "I didn't expect you to obtain the 9 turns in balcony. The 9 turns in balcony could only be used 9 times. It gave players 9 chances to reincarnate. To be more precise, as long as a player obtained the 9 turns in balcony, they would obtain 9 chances to become a native in the 3 Kingdoms Novice District. For example, Li Mubai had used the 9 turns in balcony to possess Lu Xie's body and was prepared to kill the king and usurp the throne. Unfortunately, he was discovered by Yi Chun and was directly destroyed. As a result, Yi Chun obtained the chaotic level cultivation technique, Green Lotus Sword technique, which Li Mubai obtained when the game started. Of course, this was not important. What was important was that Yi Chun had now discovered another player who had obtained the 9 turns in balcony, which was the player who had become Sun Quan. This result surprised Yi Chun a little. Of course, he was also happy at the same time. As for the reason, it was very simple. In history, Sun Quan was the emperor of Dongyu Wu and married to Qiao. Yi Chun did not like such an existence. Now that a player had killed Sun Quan, Yi Chun naturally did not have to worry about this. Although this idea seemed a little sinister, Yi Chun did not care. So what if it was sinister? Yi Chun did not want to create a time bomb in his nest. In fact, Yi Chun had originally planned to find an excuse to exile Sun Quan abroad after subduing Sun Jian. When the entire country ascended, he would not bring Sun Quan along. But now, there was no need to go through so much trouble because the player who possessed Sun Quan had completely devoured Sun Quan's soul. To be more precise, the Sun Quan in history had already died and was replaced by players. As soon as Yi Chun finished speaking, Sun Jian, who was holding Sun Quan by the neck, was stunned. Then he hurriedly looked at Yi Chun and asked, "My lord, what is the 9 revolving in balcony?" Sun Jian's words were filled with nervousness. This was something that couldn't be helped. After all, Sun Quan was his son. When Yi Chun heard this, he sighed and said, "That's right. The 9 revolving in balcony is a special treasure that allows the mutants to possess the body of a person in this world." Sun Zhongmo's soul has already been devoured by this person. Yi Chun was happy that Sun Quan was dead. However, he could not show this happiness on his face. Otherwise, who knew what Sun Jian's family would think? Although they would not betray Yi Chun, it would still leave a knot in their hearts because of this. Yi Chun did not want to see such an outcome. As soon as Yi Chun finished speaking, Mrs. Sun's eyes rolled back and she fainted. When Sun Tzu saw this, he hurriedly stepped forward and supported Mrs. Sunday. Sun Shangxiang looked at Yi Chun with tears in her eyes and asked, Is there no other way?" When Yi Chun heard this, he sighed and said, "That's right. His soul is no longer here. There is no other way." As soon as Yi Chun finished speaking, Sun Jian flew into a rage. Then he roared at the player who had taken over Sun Quan's body and possessed it. "Thief, die! Wait!" When Yi Chun saw this, he pulled Sun Jian to the side. Sun Jian, who was pulled to the side by Yi Chun, looked at Yi Chun in disbelief and asked, My lord. When Yi Chun heard this, he patted Sun Jian's shoulder and said, In this world, the mutants are immortal and indestructible. Ordinary means will not be able to kill them. When Yi Chun finished speaking, Sun Jian was stunned. At this moment, Yi Chun waved his right hand, and a thick black god slayer instantly appeared in Yi Chun's right hand. Yi Yu of Gojoseon, don't kill me. As long as Yi Yu of Gojoseon doesn't kill this lowly one. This lowly one is willing to tell you a great secret. When Yi Chun heard this, he glanced at the player who completely possessed Sun Quan's body and asked, Are you talking about the two people who became Zhang Ji and Lu Yu? When the player who completely possessed Sun Quan's body heard this, he was stunned. Obviously, he didn't expect Yi Chun to reveal the secret that he wanted to tell Yi Chun. In fact, this player didn't know that Yi Chun only needed to search the player's soul to find out any secret. After being stunned for a short while, the face of the player who had completely taken over Sun Quan's body turned pale. He screamed, Lord Yu of Beach, spare my life. I'm willing to submit to you and be your slave. Just as he said this, the thick black god slayer blocked his words with a spear. The bloody tip of the spear appeared behind his head. At the same time, the god slayer flashed and devoured the player's soul. Pucci. Yi Chun withdrew the god slayer. At the same time, Sun Quan's body fell to the ground with a plop. Sun Jian took a deep breath upon seeing this, before bowing toward Yi Chun and saying, Brother Yi, I'm sorry. Thank you, Lord, for avenging my son. When Yi Chun heard this, he sighed. He patted Sun Jian's shoulder and said, Don't worry. My condolences. Hearing this, Sun Jian nodded his head, then bowed toward Yi Chun once again. After that, he bent over and picked up Sun Quan's corpse, then walked toward the exit. Looking at the departing Sun Jian, Yi Chun sighed inwardly. Then, he went to Sun Shangxiang's side and said softly, The dead can't be revived. Don't think too much. You have to look forward. Okay. Sun Shangxiang nodded when she heard this. When Yi Chun saw this, he knew that Sun Shangxiang was still a little sad, so he didn't say anything. At this time, the best way was to let Sun Shangxiang vent her grief. At this moment, Sun Su, who was supporting the unconscious Mrs. Sun, suddenly turned pale. He hurriedly looked at Yi Chun and shouted, My lord, I beg you, please save my mother. When Yi Chun heard this, he couldn't help but be stunned. Then, he moved his feet and instantly appeared beside Sun Su. In the next second, with a thought from Yi Chun, he released his divine sense and firmly enveloped Madame Sun's body. A few seconds later, Yi Chun's eyes suddenly opened. Then he looked at the void and shouted, How dare you? You just possess my body in front of me. After Yi Chun finished speaking, he raised his right hand and grabbed at the void. A grayish-black fog instantly appeared from the void and was caught by Yi Chun. At the same time, an inexplicable scream of horror suddenly sounded. Yi Chun. Chapter 1236. When Yi Chun heard this, he sneered and used soul search. At this moment, the soul that was caught by Yi Chun let out a shrill scream. However, the scream didn't last for more than a second before it became completely silent. After a few breaths, Yi Chun frowned. The 9 turn-in balconies that had never appeared in his previous life had suddenly appeared in large numbers and were divided among many players. Was it a trap? Or, no matter what the reason was, these 9 turn-in balconies had to be destroyed. And before ascending, he had to check all the natives of the Great Han Empire. Otherwise, when I unify the world, I might take the players who possess the natives with me and ascend together. This kind of situation must not happen. Otherwise, thinking of this, Yi Chun narrowed his eyes and clenched his right hand that was holding the souls of the players. Bang! A pure white, true sun fire appeared and burned the souls of the players who wanted to possess Madame Sun to ashes in the blink of an eye. At the same time, Madame Sun coughed and weakly opened her eyes. When Sun Su saw this, he let out a sigh of relief and said to Yi Chun, Sun Su thanks the Lord for saving my life. He wanted to bow, but he was still holding Madame Sun, so he couldn't. However, Yi Chun didn't care about this. When Sun Shangxiang saw this, she wiped the tears that flowed out of her eyes because Madame Sun suddenly fainted. "Thank you, Lord." When Yichen heard this, he glanced at Sun Shangxiang and said, "We're family. No need to be so polite." When Sun Shangxiang heard this, she couldn't help but feel warm in her heart. She hurried to Madame Sun's side and took Madame Sun from Sun Su's hands and carefully looked after her. Sun Su, who had some free time, came to Yi Chen's side and bowed. "Lord, my second brother's soul was devoured, and my mother's soul was almost devoured as well. Who did this? It's just a small matter. Bofu, before I return, everyone in the Sun residence must not go out. This king will go to that world to deal with this matter." After hearing Sun Su's question, Yi Chen looked at Sun Su and said. When Sun Su heard this, he was slightly stunned, and then hurriedly bowed and said, "Su is willing to follow my lord and destroy the enemy together." Sun Quan's soul was devoured by a player, and Mrs. Sun almost died. Naturally, Sun Su's heart was filled with anger. He wanted to kill all the players who plotted against the Sun family. Otherwise, he wouldn't have said that. Of course, if other players heard this, they would be angry. However, Yi Chen would not be angry because he could understand Sun Su's feelings at this moment. After Sun Su finished his words, he left with Sun Quan's body. Sun Jian, who came back alone, suddenly entered the room and shouted, "Shut up, father." When Sun Su heard this, he suddenly became anxious and called out. When Sun Jian heard this, he fiercely glared at Sun Su and then said in a deep voice, "The Lord doesn't let us go out because he wants to protect our Sun family. If you go to that world, you will only be a burden to the Lord. Do you understand?" When Sun Su heard this, he opened his mouth but couldn't say anything. When Yi Chen saw this, he patted Sun Su's shoulder and said, "Bofu's heart, this king understands and also understands. However, the person who plotted against Zhongmo and Mrs. Sun has been killed by this king. The matter this king is talking about is the 9 revolving balcony. This king wants to eliminate this hidden danger as soon as possible. Do you understand?" "My lord." When Sun Su heard this, he opened his mouth but couldn't continue. Sun Su was brave and wanted to take revenge. However, he knew that his lord, Prince Yu of Han, Yi Chen, was much more powerful than him. Otherwise, how could he catch a player's soul with a wave of his hand and create a ball of flame with a clench of his fist and then destroy the player's soul? Of course, this wasn't important. What was important was that Sun Su suddenly realized that his so-called revenge seemed to have affected his lord, Yi Chen's plan. When Sun Su finished speaking, Yi Chen patted Sun Su's shoulder and then said seriously, "Bofu, don't let your emotions affect your thinking. This is a big taboo." When Sun Su heard this, he was stunned. After he recovered, he took a deep breath and then exhaled deeply. In the next second, Sun Su solemnly bowed to Yi Chen and said, "Yes, my lord." When Yi Chen heard this, he nodded and then looked at Sun Su and said, "Bofu, when you reach the reincarnation immortal city, you will first be a soldier under your father's camp. Or you can go to Zilong, Dianwei, Yinchang, Ida, and the others' camps. You can choose where you want to go and train yourself." "Yes, my lord." When Sun Su heard this, he nodded without hesitation and then bowed to Yi Chen. Sun Su knew that he was rash and also knew his own shortcomings. He also knew that Yi Chen's arrangement was actually a punishment for him. Of course, it was also a test. If he continued to be rash at this time, he would be a fool. Naturally, Sun Su would not do such a thing. When Yi Chen heard this, he nodded with satisfaction. Then, with a thought, the innate spiritual treasure Fire Spirit Pearl appeared. When Sun Jian, Sun Su, Sun Shangxiang, and Madame Sun were stunned by the sudden appearance of the Fire Spirit Pearl, Yi Chen raised his right hand and then pointed at the Fire Spirit Pearl in the air. Buzz! The innate spiritual treasure Fire Spirit Pearl emitted a bright red light. Then, a fiery red light shield appeared out of thin air and enveloped the Sun residence in the blink of an eye. Sun Quan being possessed by the players using the 9 turns balcony was nothing. However, Yi Chen found out one thing from the memories of the players who possessed Sun Quan. That was, Sun Quan's blood essence had already been obtained by the players. And the players who obtained Sun Quan's blood essence could use Sun Quan's blood essence to lock onto Sun Jian's family through the 9 turns in balcony. Then, they could try to possess the bodies of Sun Jian's family. This way, Sun Jian's family would become players wearing the skin of the players. The purpose of these players was not complicated. That was to replace Sun Jian's family and reap the benefits in the upcoming vassal war. As for using the identity of Sun Jian's family to submit to Yi Chun and use the skin of Sun Jian's family to secretly reap benefits from Yi Chun, it was impossible. This was because even if they obtained Sun Jian's body, they would not be able to be like Sun Jian and receive a system notification when they submitted to Yi Chun. Otherwise, the players who had just taken over Sun Quan's body would not have such a drastic change in expression when they heard that Yi Chun was their master. After glancing at the fiery red light shield that enveloped the entire Sun residence, Yi Chun looked at Sun Jian and said, "Before this king returns, no one is allowed to leave." "Yes, my lord." When Sun Jian heard this, his face turned solemn and he hurriedly bowed. Chapter 1237. Hearing this, Yi Chun nodded. Then, with a thought, he released his divine sense. In the blink of an eye, he contacted Guojia and Dianwei. "Feng Xiao, Dianwei, come here." Hearing Yi Chun's words, Guojia and Dianwei, who were staying in Qinggong's house, were both stunned. Then, they hurried to bow to the void. "Yes, my lord." As soon as the two finished speaking, the space in front of them twisted. Seeing this, Guojia and Dianwei hurriedly walked in and disappeared. Fuchun County, Sun Mansion's main hall. Space suddenly twisted, and then Guojia and Dianwei walked out one after the other. Sun Jian, Sun Su, Sun Shangxiang, and Madame Sun all stared at this scene with their eyes wide open. They had never seen Yi Chun's method before. Otherwise, they wouldn't be so shocked. While Sun Jian's family was still in shock, Guojia and Dianwei glanced at Sun Jian's family and hurried forward. They then bowed to Yi Chun and said, "Thank you." "Greetings, my lord." Hearing this, Yi Chun nodded and said, "I'm going back to the other world. You all wait here first. If there are any abnormalities, go ahead and attack. But don't kill them, just capture them." Sun Jian and his family were being targeted by a player faction. Although Yi Chun had obtained some information through soul searching, the two players that Yi Chun had soul searched weren't core members of the player faction. They didn't know much. Therefore, Yi Chun didn't know whether this player faction had other methods. For example, whether they had people lying in ambush in the Sun Mansion. If they did, then once Yi Chun went to the real world, the Sun Mansion would be in danger. Of course, Sun Jian and Sun Su wouldn't be in danger. The problem was Sun Shangxiang and Madame Sunday. Yi Chun didn't want to see any accidents happen. Therefore, he called Guojia and Dianwei over just in case. With Guojia and Dianwei here, the player faction that schemed against the Sun Mansion had all sorts of methods. One must know that Dianwei was at the Purple Mansion state and could use 100% of his power. Of course, Guojia wasn't bad either. He was at the Mortal Evolution state. Although he was one state lower than Dianwei, his strength wasn't something that Sun Jian and Sun Su could compare to. With the two of them here, Yi Chun could go to the real world with ease and deal with the 9 turning balcony matter. As soon as Yi Chun's words, Guojia and Dianwei bowed. "Yes, my lord." Hearing this, Yi Chun nodded. At this moment, a world announcement suddenly sounded. "Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chun for successfully subduing first-rate historical generals, Sun Jian and Sun Wentai. Due to their special identities, player Yi Chun is rewarded with innate attribute points X10, gold X10, 000,000. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chun for successfully subduing first-rate historical generals, Sun Su and Sun Bofu. Player Yi Chun is rewarded with gold X10, 000,000. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chun for successfully subduing first-rate historical beauty, Sun Shangxiang. Player Yi Chun is rewarded with gold X10, 0000000. The world announcement was repeated 3 times, instantly causing the entire world channel to explode. Oh shit. Oh shit. Yiyu of Gojosian is going to explode. He's going to destroy Sun Jian's family in one go. Most importantly, he's even subdued Sun Shangxiang. I've seen Sun Shangxiang before. She's so beautiful. Idiot, be careful of your words. Think about it. Is Yiyu of Gojosian's woman someone you can comment on? Damn it. This is a compliment. Don't you understand? Go to hell. I only know that you're looking for death. Stop wasting time. Didn't you guys notice that Sun Quan is not among the people Yiyu of Gojosian subdued? Sun Quan is the future emperor of Dongyu Wu. It shouldn't be possible to subdue him, right? It's not impossible. After all, he's on the same level as Liu Bei. But then again, Yiyu of Gojosian even killed Liu Bei. Don't tell me he's going to kill Sun Quan too. I don't think it's possible. Don't forget that Yiyu of Gojosian has already subdued Sun Jian, Sun Su, and Sun Shangxiang. If Sun Quan, Sun Jian, Sun Su, and Sun Shangxiang die, wouldn't they betray him? I think it's possible. Don't forget, if Yiyu of Gojosian didn't exist, Sun Quan would have married to Qiao in the end. Hee hee, you idiot. You're dead meat. How dare you say that? Damn it. This is the truth. And I'm talking about a hypothetical. The world channel was in an uproar. Yichun looked at it and his face sank. Yichun was angry. It wasn't because of the player's words. It was because the world announcement didn't appear when Yichun subdued Sun Jian or Sun Su. It just had to appear when he was about to go offline and deal with the forces that had obtained the 9 transformations in balcony. This was a message to that faction and the other people who had obtained the 9 revolutions in balcony. Yichun most likely knew about the 9 revolutions in balcony. Damn it. Why did the world announcement appear so late this time? Could it be because of Sun Quan? Just as Yichun thought of this, the world announcement appeared again. Ding. Special character Sun Quan has been killed by player Zhongling Fei. Special reward to player Zhongling Fei. Innate attribute points x 100. The world announcement appeared 3 times in a row. Once again, the world channel exploded. F*CK. F*CK. Who is Zhongling Fei? He actually killed Sun Quan. Isn't Yiyu of Gojosian at Sun Jian's place? How did Zhongling Fei kill Sun Quan? F*CK. This isn't important. What's important is the reward after killing Sun Quan. F*CK. 108 attribute points. If I get this, I can become a Saint General at the peak stage. No, I can advance to the mortal evolution state at any time. F*CK. You reminded me. Killing Sun Quan gives me so many innate attribute points. Doesn't that mean that killing Cao Cao, Dong Zhuo, and the other dukes also gives me innate attribute points? Of course. Otherwise, how did Zhongling Fei get 108 attribute points? F*CK. I saw Dong Zhuo's security team in front. Should we go and deal with him now? Go. Go now. F*CK. 108 attribute points. If we get this, we can advance to the mortal evolution state, or even the purple mansion state. F*CK. Dong Zhuo has so many men. You want to kill Dong Zhuo? Aren't you afraid of being killed? Don't forget that although our states have improved a lot, the natives of this world are still suppressed by us. It's not that easy to kill them. What's there to be afraid of? As long as we kill Dong Zhuo, we can get a lot of innate attribute points. It doesn't matter even if we die a few times. F*CK. There's only one Dong Zhuo. Whoever kills him will get innate attribute points. F*CK. Don't try to trick me. The world channel was in an uproar. Yichun took a look and raised his middle finger to the sky before going offline. Yichun couldn't delay any longer. The player that Yichun killed devoured Sun Quan's soul and took over Sun Quan's body was Zhongling Fei. With the world announcement, it was impossible for Zhongling Fei's force not to know that Yichun had found out about them. If Yichun delayed any longer, everyone would run away. Who would Yichun find then? After that, how would Yichun follow the vine to the melon and find all the people who had obtained the 9 revolutions in balcony. Those who should be destroyed would be destroyed. It could be said that the 9-turn in balcony was a hidden danger. If Yichen didn't deal with it, Yichen might bring some natives, who were actually players, with him when he ascended. Then, these players would be under Yichen's protection. Not only would they be able to get a few times more cultivation buffs from Yichen's Samsara Empire, but they would also be able to steadily gain benefits from the Chaos world and rise rapidly. Yichen didn't want to do such a good thing for others. If Yichen did it, the one who would be affected in the end would be Yichen himself. Of course, there wouldn't be any danger in the short term. The natives who ascended with Yichen wouldn't dare to expose themselves, let alone plot against Yichen. But as time passed, it would be a different story. Chapter 1238. In the real world, Samsara City, in the main hall of the City Lord's mansion. With a creak, the door of the diamond-level game capsule opened. Then, Yichen stood up. Brother, Flaming Tiger Yilin, who was sitting cross-legged in the main hall and cultivating, hurriedly opened her eyes when she heard the sound. Then, she looked at Yichen and called out. When Yichen heard this, he nodded and said, "Continue cultivating. I'm going out for a while." "Okay, big brother." Hearing this, Yinhu and Yilin nodded and said. When Yichen heard this, he stroked Flaming Tiger Yilin's head. Then, with a thought, the space in front of him instantly distorted. After glancing at the distorted space, Yichen stepped into it and disappeared. In the main hall of the City Lord's mansion in Black Eagle City. "What did you say?" Yichen subdued Sun Jian, Sun Su, and Sun Shangxiang. After the leader of Black Eagle City said this in shock, he directly pushed away the young woman who was serving him and stood up with a bang. "Yes, boss. That's what the world announcement said." When a follower who came to report the news heard this, he hurriedly nodded and replied. When the leader of Black Eagle City heard this, his face suddenly darkened. He then looked at the follower who came to report and asked, "Where's Zhang Lingfei? Is he still in the game? Did Yichen find him?" "Boss, Zhang Lingfei killed Sun Quan and got 108 attribute points. He even made the world announcement. When I passed by him earlier, I saw that he was still lying in bed. I didn't dare to call him and came here directly." When a follower who came to report heard this, he hurriedly said. When the leader of Black Eagle City heard this, his face darkened again. Then, he directly looked at the follower who came to report and shouted, "Quick, spread the word. Everyone, leave Black Eagle City immediately." When a follower who came to report the news heard this, he was first stunned. Then, his face suddenly became extremely nervous. In the next second, the follower asked nervously, "Boss Yichen wants to come to our place?" Sun Quan's death is equivalent to the death of Zhang Lingfei, who is occupying Sun Quan's body. Therefore, Yichen must know about the 9 revolutions in balcony. It would be strange if he didn't come. Don't forget, his goal is to rule the world. It's impossible for him to let others cause trouble in the game world. The leader of Black Eagle City nodded and said with a gloomy expression, But we didn't make him our enemy." The follower who came to report the news hurriedly said. When the leader of the Black Eagle City heard this, he coldly glanced at the lackey and said, "What are you talking about? Causing trouble in the game world is going against Yichen. Moreover, those who obtain the 9 revolutions in balcony, including me, have all discussed it. As long as the 9 revolutions in balcony is useful, we will use it on a large scale and replace the natives in the game world on a large scale. Then, we can reap the benefits under Yichen's protection. But Yichen doesn't know that we have his plan. If he comes, can't we just hand over the 9 revolutions in balcony?" The follower who came to report the news was slightly stunned when he heard this. Then, he hurriedly said. When the leader of Black Eagle City heard this, he couldn't help but be stunned. After a short pause, the leader's eyes suddenly lit up. "Damn right. Yichen only knows that we have the 9 revolutions in balcony and that we want to replace the natives in the game world, but he doesn't know our plan. If he comes, we'll apologize and hand over the 9 revolutions in balcony. Then, everything will be fine." As soon as the leader of Black Eagle City finished speaking, a cold voice suddenly sounded. "Is that so?" As soon as the cold voice sounded, a young man stepped out of the void and appeared in the hall. "Yi of Gojoseon." After two exclamations, the leader of Black Eagle City and his follower hurriedly bowed to Yi Chun in an extremely nervous manner. I pay my respects to you of Beach." Although many people hadn't seen Yi Chen's appearance before, they had all heard of him. Of course, even if they hadn't heard of him before, they could infer Yi Chen's identity from his ability to travel through space at will. Of course, this wasn't important. What was important was that Yi Chen had come. This was the key. If it were anyone else, the Black Eagle City's chieftain would not be so afraid. Unfortunately, the one who came was Yi Chun, someone who was cruel and cold. He had killed tens of millions of people without even blinking. How could the Black Eagle City's chieftain not be afraid? When Yi Chun heard the leader of Black Eagle City and his followers' nervous words, he smiled coldly and asked, "Who released the news about the 9 revolutions in balcony?" It wasn't normal for a large number of 9 revolutions in balconies to appear. Otherwise, Yi Chun wouldn't have asked this question. To be more precise, Yi Chun wanted to confirm one thing. That was whether someone had deliberately released the news about the 9 revolutions in balcony to scheme against Yi Chun. The leader of Black Eagle City couldn't help but shudder when he heard Yi Chen's words. "Yi Gojoseon, I don't understand what you mean." When Yi Chun heard the Black Eagle City leader's words, he coldly glanced at the Black Eagle City leader and said, "If you don't understand, then don't understand." After Yi Chun finished speaking, he pointed his right hand at the Black Eagle City's leader. Then, he pulled the Black Eagle City's leader over. "Lord Yu of Beach, please spare my life." The leader of Black Eagle City, who had been grabbed by Yi Chun, turned pale and hurriedly screamed. When the lackey beside him heard this, he shuddered all of a sudden. When Yi Chun heard this, he curled his lips in disdain. Then, he pressed his right hand against the leader's head. Soul Search. After using the Soul Search secret technique, Yi Chen's huge consciousness instantly rushed into the leader's mind. In the blink of an eye, his soul was firmly locked onto. After a few breaths, Yi Chen opened his eyes and slapped with his right hand. Bang! The leader of Black Eagle City's body was instantly blasted apart by Yi Chen's slap. In an instant, a large amount of flesh and blood splattered out and dyed the hall red. When the follower beside him saw this, his eyes rolled back and he almost fainted. Fear, nervousness, and terror were the feelings of the follower of Black Eagle City's leader. Lord Yu of Beach, please spare my life. I'm just an errand boy. I didn't take part in anything." When Yi Chen heard this, he glanced at the follower. Then, he waved his right hand and sent the follower flying. With a bang sound, the lackey directly hit the wall and then deeply embedded in it. Looking at the pieces of flesh and blood on the ground, Yi Chun smiled coldly. "Damn it, it's fine if you want to become a native and reap benefits in the game world. But if you want to pretend to be a native and follow me to reap benefits, you're scheming against me. You're dreaming if you still want to live like this." But then again, the person who had spread the news of the 9 transformations in balcony and attracted the attention of many leaders actually existed. When Yi Chun sensed that the 9 transformations in balconies had not only appeared again, but there were also many of them. To be more precise, Yi Chun felt that the appearance of the 9 transformations in balconies in large numbers was a trap set by someone. Of course, Yi Chun couldn't make an accurate judgment at that time. After all, Yi Chun didn't get enough information. But now, Yi Chun, who had browsed through the soul memories of the leader of Black Eagle City, could make an accurate judgment. That was, the appearance of the 9 transformations in balconies in large numbers was a trap set by someone who wanted to scheme against Yi Chun. As for this person, compared to Elder Yun, he had hidden himself even deeper. He only released the 9 transformations in balconies in large numbers, but he didn't control any players. He also didn't ask the players who had obtained the 9 transformations in balconies to hand over any benefits. Of course, the most important thing was that this person didn't reveal any information about his identity. He only spread the news of the location of the 9 transformations in balconies before disappearing. His appearance was bizarre, and his disappearance was bizarre. Damn it. No matter who this bastard is, I have to find him. Otherwise, he might come up with some other scheme, but before that, everyone who had obtained the 9 transformations in balconies had to be dealt with. Chapter 1239. Thinking of this, Yichen raised his right hand and pointed at the air. Boom, boom, boom. Thunder that shook the heavens, and the earth instantly sounded. Then, thousands of lightning bolts appeared out of thin air and struck straight at the core figures of Black Eagle City. Boom, boom, boom. After a series of explosions, the core figures of Black Eagle City's forces were all killed on the spot, without exception. In the next second, Yi Chun headed straight for the secret vault of Black Eagle City. When he arrived at the secret vault, Yi Chun kicked open the door and walked in. A few seconds later, the 8-9 turns in balconies and some spiritual herbs in Black Eagle City's secret vault were all plundered by Yi Chun. Looking at the Black Eagle City's secret vault that had been plundered, Yi Chun's mind moved, and the space in front of him instantly distorted. After taking a look at the distorted space, Yi Chun stepped into it and disappeared. A minute later, Yi Chun destroyed another player faction that had obtained the 9 turns in balconies. He took away the 9 turns in balconies and some spiritual herbs that this player faction had collected. Then, he went to the next place. Time passed bit by bit. When Yi Chun destroyed the last player faction and took away 32 9 turns in balconies and some spiritual herbs, Yi Chun stopped. Because they had obtained the 9 turns in balconies, they wanted to occupy the bodies of natives in the game world. Then, after Yi Chun unified the world, they would submit to Yi Chun. In the end, under Yi Chun's protection, the factions that benefited were all cleaned up by Yi Chun. Looking at the 9 turns in balconies piled up like a small mountain in the small world, Yi Chun immediately frowned. The 9 turns in balconies had never appeared in my previous life, but so many of them had appeared in this life. Where did they come from? The first person to use the 9 turns in balconies was Li Mu Bai, and Li Mu Bai had snatched them from a sect. Could it be someone from that sect? Thinking of this, Yi Chun's eyes suddenly widened. It was not impossible. Although it was not big, he had to investigate. Thinking of this, Yi Chun used his mind to distort the space in front of him. Glancing at the distorted space, Yi Chun stepped into it and disappeared. In Huqing, the space above the ruined Dark Moon town suddenly distorted. Then, Yi Chun stepped out and appeared in the air. Yi Chun took a glance at Dark Moon town, which used to belong to the Li clan, but was now in ruins and overgrown with weeds. He couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. The Li clan was one of the hidden powers. They were very powerful and possessed great fortunes. Unfortunately, the Li clan was dissatisfied with the current situation and schemed against Yi Chun. In the end, they were violently destroyed by Yi Chun. As for Yi Chun, because he had destroyed the Li clan, he had obtained the strongest construction material for the heirloom seal, the 9 orifices exquisite stone, a terrifying amount of immortal gray jade or veins, and a large number of netherworld passage tokens. He had also comprehended chaos grade cultivation techniques and chaos grade talismans. It could be said that the benefits Yi Chun had obtained from this place were extremely great. Otherwise, Yi Chun wouldn't have such an expression. Back then, the Li clan's patriarch had said that the 9 revolutions in balcony was obtained from a sect in a safe city nearby. Now, all the safe cities have been destroyed by a shifter players a month after the game started. If there were no surprises, the sect that had obtained the 9 revolutions in balcony should be in a few nearby cities. Just as Yi Chun thought of this, a man with a black hood on his head suddenly walked out of the Li clan's ruined secret realm. When Yi Chun saw this, he was instantly stunned. Looking at this person's actions, it didn't seem like he had just discovered this secret realm. Instead, he seemed like a frequent visitor who often came in and out. The Li clan's secret realm had already been completely plundered by me. There was no longer any use for it. Yet there was still someone who used this place as a residence? Wait a minute. After I comprehended the seal of the 9 dragons, this secret realm no longer had the ability to prevent others from entering. As long as someone's brain was still normal, they wouldn't choose to live in this secret realm for long periods of time. Otherwise, it would be very easy to be discovered by shifter players who barged in. If that was the case, this person should be using this secret realm to isolate himself from divine sense probing. Divine sense probing, F***. Among the players, there's no one else who has divine sense except me. This person is guarding against me. When he thought of this, Yi Chen's eyes suddenly widened. Then, he directly landed on the ground and instantly appeared in front of the hooded man. At this moment, the hooded man's body suddenly stiffened. Then, he directly raised his head to look at Yi Chen. "Who are you?" As soon as the hooded man finished speaking, Yi Chen narrowed his eyes and asked, "If I'm not wrong, you're the one who did the 9 revolutions in balcony." When the hooded man heard this, he glanced at Yi Chen and said, "What 9 revolutions in balcony? I've never heard of it." When Yi Chen heard this, he smiled coldly and said, "Your heart has betrayed you. Your heartbeat betrayed you. Speak, who are you? Why did you scheme against me?" When Yi Chen finished speaking, the hooded man's expression suddenly changed. However, he immediately regained his composure. "Yi Chen, you're really a person of great stature with short memories. Don't tell me you really don't remember me." When Yi Chen heard the hooded man's words, he immediately frowned and asked, "This isn't your original appearance. This shouldn't be your original appearance or voice, right?" When the hooded man heard this, he glared hatefully at Yi Chen and said, "You're right. This isn't my original appearance or voice." When Yi Chen heard this, he glanced at the hooded man and said, "Who cares? I don't care who you are. You can die now." When the hooded man heard this, his expression suddenly changed and he shouted, "Yi Chen, don't tell me you want to continue being confused. Don't you want to know who I am? Childish." Yi Chen smiled coldly. When he finished speaking, he grabbed the hooded man's head with his right hand and used the soul search. Ah! A mournful howl instantly sounded from the hooded man's mouth. Then his eyes rolled back and his body shook violently. A few seconds later, Yi Chen released his right hand from the hooded man's head. Then, with a thought, the thick black godslayer instantly appeared. When Yi Chen saw the hooded man shaking back and forth because of the soul search, he didn't hesitate to stab the godslayer in his right hand. With a poochie sound, the thick black godslayer instantly pierced through the hooded man's heart. At the same time, the godslayer flashed and instantly swallowed the hooded man's soul. When he saw the hooded man who couldn't be any more dead, Yi Chen curled his lips in disdain. "Since you've obtained a new life, why don't you live peacefully and come back to me for revenge? You're really tired of living." The hooded man was none other than Gong Sun Qing of the Gong Sun clan, who had been killed by Yi Chen a long time ago. He was Yi Chen's enemy in his previous life and the second brother of Gong Sun Ji. At that time, Yi Chen had chopped off Gong Sun Qing's head with his sword and taken away all the netherworld travel tokens. He had never thought that Gong Sun Qing could be resurrected. Who would have thought that Gong Sun Qing would obtain an extremely special life-saving pill in the game world, the resurrection pill? With this, as long as his soul wasn't destroyed, he could be resurrected. Of course, if he didn't have a body, he would become a different person after being resurrected. To be more precise, after being resurrected, Gong Sun Qing would become the hooded man. In order to take revenge, he took out the 9 transformations in balcony that he had accidentally found. He was prepared to use the player's power to disrupt the game world and finally achieve his goal of taking revenge on Yi Chen. Chapter 1240. Unfortunately, the hooded man, Gong Sun Qing, had been too calculative. He had completely neglected the fact that Yi Chen would investigate the 9 revolutions in balcony and trace it back to the Li clan. Of course, this was also Yi Chen's luck. Otherwise, the hooded man, Gong Sun Qing, would have thought of ways to scheme against Yi Chen while Yi Chen was unaware and could only be passive. How annoying would that be? Glancing at Gong Sun Qing's dead body, Yi Chen curled his lips in disdain. Then, He pointed his right hand at Gong Sun Qing's corpse and made a grabbing motion through the air. With a whoosh, a black storage bag flew toward Yi Chun instantly. Then, Yi Chun caught it in his hand. Glancing at the black storage bag in his right hand, Yi Chun's mind moved. Then, a large number of 9 revolutions in balconies appeared on the ground instantly. This son of AB Astris TCH was really lucky. Not only did he get the resurrection elixir, but he also got the storage bag that fell to Earth with the meteor after his resurrection. Back then, when the meteor fell to Earth and the world changed, many treasures fell to Earth with the meteor. Among them, there were all kinds of tools with various functions, magic treasures, special items, and so on. There are all kinds of things. However, if one wanted to get these things without a certain amount of luck and opportunity, it would be a dream. For example, Yi Chin's diamond-level gaming chamber and the star bead that could allow the strength of the game world to be 100% synchronized with the strength of the real world. If Yi Chin had not been reborn, he would definitely have missed them. Without them, Yi Chin would not have been able to seize the initiative at the beginning of the game world and take the lead step by step. Of course, this was just a hypothesis. The reality was that Yi Chun had been reborn and snatched these 2 great opportunities. Then he took the lead step by step and became the strongest player. As for Gong Sun Qing, he was someone who had been killed by Yi Chun once. Not only was he resurrected, but he also got the black storage bag that fell to Earth with a meteor and contained a large number of 9 revolutions in balconies. This was Gong Sun Qing's luck and also his opportunity. Unfortunately, Gong Sun Qing had been blinded by hatred and had chosen the wrong method. Otherwise, there was a high chance that he would have used the 9 transformations in balcony to viciously backstab Yi Chun. To be more precise, as long as Gong Sun Qing continued to hide, did not contact other player forces, and expanded his forces on his own, and then used the opportunity of rebuilding his account in the 9 revolutions in balcony to become the natives of the Great Han Empire on a large scale, he would be able to ascend to the primeval world together with Yi Chun. After that, under Yi Chin's protection, Gong Sun Qing would rapidly develop and become stronger. Once he was strong enough, he could set up all kinds of traps for Yi Chun, secretly sabotage things, and then take revenge on Yi Chun. This was the right way to take revenge. Of course, this was not the best choice. This was because as long as Yi Chun ascended to the Great Desolate World, his cultivation speed would soar. Other players would not be able to catch up to him even if they wanted to. If Gong Sun Qing still wanted to take revenge, he would be easily discovered by Yi Chun. After all, after ascending to the Great Desolate World, Yi Chun's ability to predict danger would be stronger as his cultivation level increased. If someone schemed against Yi Chun, and their strength was not as high as Yi Chun would be able to easily deduce their origins, and then Yi Chun would directly find them. Therefore, Gong Sun Qing's best choice was to conceal his identity and forget his past. Then, he could peacefully develop and become an overlord in the real world. Unfortunately, Gong Sun Qing was too short-sighted. A great opportunity had been wasted by him just like that. Of course, this was only a logical analysis. Yi Chun would not feel sorry for Gong Sun Qing because of this. For Yi Chun, it was best that Gong Sun Qing was exposed early. Yi Chun did not want the person who schemed against him to continue hiding, even if this person had a good reason for taking revenge. After all, Gong Sun Qing was an enemy. No matter how many reasons he had for taking revenge, he was still an enemy. Yi Chun's choice when dealing with enemies was very simple and also very violent. That was to kill without mercy. Looking at the hill-like 9 revolutions in balcony on the ground, Yi Chun waved his right hand, and the 9 revolutions in balconies that Yi Chun had previously collected appeared on the ground. In the next second, Yi Chun raised his right hand and then flicked his finger. With a buzz, a pure white ball of true sun flame instantly appeared and then expanded. In the blink of an eye, it expanded to a diameter of 10,000 meters. Boom! The Grand Sun Primordial Flame Fireball, with a diameter of 10,000 meters, instantly covered the small mountain formed by the 9 revolution in balconies, and then began to burn violently. Bang, bang, bang. A series of explosions rang out. Then, the 9 revolutions in balcony exploded one after another and turned into ashes that filled the sky. The 9 revolutions in balconies allowed players to have the ability to rebuild accounts and gave players a high chance of becoming natives of the game world. This ability was a bit unorthodox and could be very useful. However, it was useless to Yichun. Naturally, Yichun would not use it. Of course, he would not keep it either. After a few breaths, all the 9 revolutions in balconies were burned to ashes. Yichun glanced at it. After confirming that he did not miss anything, he used his mind to distort the space in front of him. After taking a look at the distorted space, Yichun stepped into it and disappeared. In the hall of the City Lord's mansion in Samsara City, the space suddenly distorted. Then, Yichun stepped out and directly appeared here. Flaming Tiger Yilin, who was sitting cross-legged in the hall, saw Yichun's arrival. She immediately stood up and asked, "Big brother, is the matter settled?" When Yichun heard this, he smiled and nodded. Just as Yichun was about to lie down in the diamond-grade gaming chamber, he suddenly thought of something. He then looked at Flaming Tiger Yilin and said, "If the evolved race comes, just tell me to log off or follow them." Yichun had the evolved race's aggro mark on him. The evolved race would not ignore their great enemy, Yichun. Of course, this was not important. What was important was that Yichun had always wanted to destroy the evolved race's lair, but he had never found the opportunity. It could not be helped. The evolved race was an extremely mysterious race in Yichun's previous life. From beginning to end, they had only appeared once. At that time, their flesh and blood allowed a player to rise up and become an overlord. After that, the evolved race came to seek revenge and annihilated the player. After that, there was no more news of them. It could be said that there was no accurate information about the evolved race in Yichun's memories from his previous life. Therefore, Yichun wanted to find the evolved race's lair. It was like a mortal trying to reach the heavens. As for the reason why Yichun wanted to find the evolved race's lair, it was very simple. The flesh and blood of the evolved race could improve one's bone structure and strengthen one's body. It was also a top food ingredient with many benefits. Yichun could not simply miss it. In addition, Yichun had the evolved race's aggro mark on him. Yichun could not let the evolved race go. Not long ago, during the World War, after Yichun destroyed Silla Country, the evolved race came to Samsara City to seek revenge. However, Flaming Tiger Yilin used a trick and let one escape. Of course, this was not because Yilin was soft-hearted. It was because Flaming Tiger Yilin was preparing to bait and attract more evolved race. It was also at that time that Yichun's opportunity came. Unfortunately, Yichun waited for a long time, but the evolved race still did not show up. Otherwise, Yichun, who suddenly thought of this, would not say this. When Flaming Tiger Yilin heard this, she was slightly stunned. Then she said, "Brother, just now a golden rat snuck outside Samsara City. However, it was very far away. After taking a look at Samsara City, it left. I wanted to track it, but its aura disappeared directly. My divine sense could not detect it." Chapter 1241. When Yichun heard this, he could not help but frown. Did the evolved race have this ability? That's not right. To be able to avoid Yi Lin's divine sense, it should be the innate ability of the golden rat. It's impossible for every evolver to have such an ability. If they did, I wouldn't have been able to discover the golden python. Yichun had killed a golden python before and obtained the heavenly book, an innate cardinal treasure that could be used as an imperial edict. If the evolved race had the ability to avoid detection by divine sense like the golden rat, then the golden python would have the ability as well. In this way, Yichun would not be able to detect the golden python, let alone obtain the heavenly book. Yilin was only at the Purple Mansion realm, so her divine sense was not strong. If he used it, would he be able to detect the rat? Yichun's divine sense was now comparable to that of an Earth immortal, which was extremely abnormal. Otherwise, Yichun would not have thought this way. At this thought, Yichun released his divine sense. In the blink of an eye, it covered a radius of 2 million miles. After 10 minutes, Yi Chun withdrew his divine sense and frowned. Damn it, even my divine sense could not detect it. If I can't find it, then so be it. As long as I still have the mark of hatred of the evolved race, they will still come. At this thought, Yi Chun looked directly at the flaming tiger Yulin and said, if there is any chance, then the golden rat will appear again. If nothing unexpected happens, that golden rat should appear again. Of course, it could also be the Evolved Races Protection Organization. When that time comes, remember to tell me to go offline. If there aren't many of them, then capture them all and wait for me to go offline before dealing with them. The golden rat was the Evolved Race's spy. If it appeared, the evolved race would appear again and rush to Samsara City for revenge. If there were a lot of evolvers, or even all of them, then Yi Chun could deal with them all in one go. If there were only a few, then Yi Chun could use the flaming tiger Yilin to capture the evolvers. To be more precise, as long as the evolvers came and were captured by the flaming tiger Yilin, Yi Chun would be able to search their souls. This way, Yi Chun would be able to obtain accurate information about the evolved race. Finally, he would be able to destroy their nest. This was Yi Chun's plan. It was simple and crude, but it was very practical. As soon as Yi Chun finished speaking, Flaming Tiger Yilin's expression immediately turned solemn. Yes, brother. Yi Chun nodded when he heard this. He then walked to the side of the diamond-level gaming cabin and lay down inside. With a creak, the door of the diamond-level gaming cabin closed. Yi Chun immediately closed his eyes. In the game world, in the novice district of the Three Kingdoms, in the Fuchin County, in the hall of the Sun Mansion. A beam of light suddenly descended from the sky. Then, Yi Chun appeared. The moment Yi Chun opened his eyes, Sun Jian, Sun Su, Guijia, and Dian Wei all bowed to Yi Chun and said loudly, "Greetings, my lord." After hearing this, Yi Chun nodded his head. With a thought, the Xiantian spiritual treasure flame spirit orb floating in mid-air in the hall disappeared with a red glow. At this moment, Sun Shangxiang walked in from outside and was stunned. Sun Shangxiang did not expect Yi Chun to come back so soon. After being stunned for a short while, Sun Shangxiang hurriedly bowed to Yi Chun and said, "Greetings, my lord." When Yi Chun heard this, he couldn't help but smile and say. He then said, "Soon, you will become one of my wives. You can call me husband." As soon as Yi Chun finished speaking, Sun Jian and Sun Su's eyes lit up. Yi Chun had previously said that he wanted to marry Sun Shangxiang. Sun Jian had agreed without hesitation. However, at that time, whether it was Sun Jian or Sun Su who found out later, they all thought that Sun Shangxiang would eventually marry Yi Chun as a concubine. Although they were more inclined to let Sun Shangxiang become Yi Chun's wife, they were powerless in this matter. After all, the news of Yi Chun marrying Little Qiao and Little Qiao had already spread throughout the world. Therefore, it was impossible for Sun Shangxiang to become Yi Chun's wife. She could only be a concubine. But now what did they hear? Their lord, Yi Chun, actually told Sun Shangxiang that she would become one of his wives. What did this mean? Without a doubt, it meant that Sun Shangxiang would become Yi Chun's wife, not a concubine. And this, for Sun Jian and Sun Su, was tantamount to a joyous occasion. How could they not be happy? How could they not be excited? While Sun Jian and Sun Su were overjoyed, Sun Shangxiang was first stunned, then she covered her mouth. Seeing Sun Shangxiang's indescribable shock and the natural excitement between her brows, Yi Chun could not help but smile. He then opened his mouth to ask, "You don't believe me?" No, I believe you. I believe you," Sun Shangxiang hurriedly said. When Yi Chun heard this, he smiled and nodded. Then, he looked at Sun Jian and said, "Father-in-law, get ready. I will send you to the reincarnation immortal city later." "Yes, my lord." Sun Jian was first stunned. Then he hurriedly bowed and saluted loudly. Yi Chun nodded. At this moment, Sun Su looked at Yi Chun in confusion and asked, "My lord Su, did I hear wrongly? The place you're talking about is the reincarnation immortal city?" The reincarnation immortal city had the word immortal. It was because of this word that Sun Su suddenly became confused and asked Yi Chun. It cannot be helped. This was the mortal world. How could mortals come into contact with existences related to immortals? Otherwise, Sun Tzu would not be so confused and shocked. After hearing Sun Tzu's question, Yi Chun could not help but smile and said, "You didn't hear wrongly. It's the reincarnation immortal city. You will know when you get there." "Yes, my lord." Sun Tzu's eyes widened when he heard this. Then he hurriedly bowed and saluted. When Yi Chun heard this, he nodded with a smile and said, "That's right. Go and get ready. Just bring some gold, silver, and valuables. You don't have to bring anything else." "Yes, my lord." "My lord." Sun Jian and Sun Tzu bowed to Huang Xiaolong in unison and left the hall. After looking at Sun Jian and Sun Tzu leaving, Yi Chun looked at Sun Shangxiang, who was about to leave, and said, "Shangxiang, you don't have to prepare. The City Lord Mansion has everything you need." "Oh, okay, husband." Sun Shangxiang was slightly stunned when she heard this. She then lowered her head and said shyly. Yi Chun smiled when he saw this. Then, with a thought, a two-world stone appeared in his hand. "This is a two-world stone. You can use it first. I will bring you to my world later." Sun Shangxiang's eyes lit up when she heard Yi Chun's words. She then said excitedly, "Okay, husband." Chapter 1242. How could Sun Shangxiang not know what the two-world stone was as a top-tier historical beauty? Of course, this was not important. What was important was that Sun Shangxiang knew what it meant to be able to go to Yi Chun's world. If it was something else, Sun Shangxiang might be happy, but she would not be so excited. However, this was not something else. This was Yi Chun's trust, approval, and 100% acceptance. To Sun Shangxiang, this was undoubtedly a joyous occasion. It was precisely because of this that Sun Shangxiang was so excited and agitated. After all, the power brought about by the heart between a man and a woman was incomparable to the kidney. When Yi Chun heard Sun Shangxiang's excitement, he smiled and said, "You should use it. There's no need for that. Later, I'll bring you to that world and reunite with your sisters." "Okay." When Sun Shangxiang heard this, she nodded sweetly and took the two-realm stone from Yi Chun's hand. She chose to use it without hesitation. When Yi Chun saw this, he could not help but smile. At this moment, Sun Jian, Sun Tzu, and Mrs. Sun walked in. In the next second, Sun Jian took a step forward, bowed, and said, "My lord, Jian is ready. We can set off at any time." "Good." When Yi Chun heard this, he nodded with a smile and said. After that, he waved his right hand, and the space beside him became distorted. Pointing at the distorted space, Yi Chun said, "Go in. Just go in." "Yes, my lord." "My lord." Sun Jian nodded and bowed at the same time. In the next second, Sun Jian, Sun Tzu, and Mrs. Sun walked into the distorted space and disappeared. When Yi Chun saw this, he looked at Guojia and Dian Wei and said, "You two wait here for a while. The two of you, wait here for the time being. I'll be there shortly." "Yes, my lord." When Guojia and Dian Wei heard this, they bowed. When Yi Chun heard this, he smiled slightly, then looked at Sun Shangxiang and said, "Madam, let's go to the reincarnation immortal city first." "Okay, husband." Hearing this, Sun Shangxiang smiled sweetly and said. Hearing this, Yi Chun held Sun Shangxiang's hand and walked into the distorted space. After that, they disappeared. Reincarnation immortal city. Sun Jian, Sun Tzu, and Madam Sun had just arrived in the main hall of the City Lord Mansion. They looked at the white clouds outside the main hall and couldn't stay calm. They had already confirmed the fact that Reincarnation Immortal City was an immortal city from Yi Chun. But even so, they didn't expect Reincarnation Immortal City to be a flying city. While Sun Jian, Sun Tzu, and Mrs. Sun were in a daze because of this discovery, Yi Chun appeared holding Sun Shangxiang's hand. When Sun Jian noticed the arrival of Yi Chun, Sun Tzu immediately recovered and hurriedly bowed to Yi Chun and said, "Greetings, my lord." As soon as the two of them finished speaking, Mrs. Sun immediately recovered and hurriedly bowed to Yi Chun. "I, Lady Sun, pay my respects to the Lord." When Yi Chun heard this, he couldn't help but smile and said, "Mother-in-law, we're family. Otherwise, we'll seem distant. When Yi Chun finished speaking, Sun Jian, Sun Su, and Mrs. Sun felt warm in their hearts. Sun Shangxiang, who was holding Yi Chen's hand, directly leaned on Yi Chun. She was very happy. Yi Chen's attitude was what Sun Jian and his family wanted to see the most. Otherwise, they wouldn't have behaved like this. After a short moment of feeling touched, Sun Jian's face turned serious. He then bowed to Yi Chun and said, "My lord Jian, what should we do now? Please give me the order. Go find Zizhong first and settle down your residence. Then go find Zilong and let him take you to the drill ground to choose 100,000 soldiers." When Yi Chun heard this, he smiled and said. As soon as Yi Chun finished speaking, Sun Jian's eyes suddenly lit up. He then hurriedly bowed and said, "Yes, my lord." When Yi Chun heard this, he nodded with a smile and said, "Don't be in a hurry. I need to improve your root bones and pass on a cultivation method to you." When Sun Jian and Sun Se heard this, they were both stunned. Then, their eyes suddenly lit up. They knew that Yi Chun wasn't strong. Now that their lord Yi Chun said that he was going to pass on a cultivation method to them, how could they not be excited? Just when Sun Jian and Sun Se were inexplicably excited, Yi Chun moved his mind, and the innate supreme treasure, the cauldron of heaven and earth, instantly appeared in front of Yi Chun. In the next second, Yi Chun raised his right hand and pointed it at the cauldron of heaven and earth. Buzz, buzz, buzz. For sound were heard. 4 fortune chi appeared in an instant, and then flew straight to Sun Jian, Sun Su, Sun Madam, and Sun Shangxiang. "My lord, this is—" Sun Su, who was instantly absorbed by the fortune chi, was slightly stunned. He then bowed and said. Before Sun Se finished his words, he was stunned and then entered a state of enlightenment. Sun Jian, Sun Madam, and Sun Shangxiang also did the same. When Yi Chun saw this, he raised his right hand and pointed at the void. At this moment, the cultivation method of the green lotus sword technique, a chaos-level cultivation method, instantly entered Sun Jian, Sun Su, and Sun Shangxiang's consciousness. Yi Chun's subordinates all had chaos-level cultivation methods. Although Sun Jian and Sun Su had just recognized their masters, Yi Chun wouldn't favor one over the other because of this. As for Sun Shangxiang, Yi Chun wouldn't be stingy. After all, she was Yi Chun's woman. After passing on the cultivation method, Yi Chun glanced at Madame Sunday. After thinking for a moment, Yi Chun raised his right hand and a Xiantian cultivation method appeared in an instant. Then, Yi Chun smashed it with his palm and directly poured it into Madame Sun's head. Time passed bit by bit. Under the powerful effect of the creation chi, the bone frames of Sun Jian and his family rapidly soared. As they entered a state of epiphany due to the creation chi, their auras continued to grow stronger and stronger. After half an incense stick's time, Sun Jian, Sun Su, Madame Sun, and Sun Shangxiang woke up one after another. The 4 of them looked at each other and simultaneously looked at Yi Chun. Then, they bowed to Yi Chun and loudly said, "This general, concubine, swears to the heavens that I will follow my lord, husband, until death and never betray you. If I violate this oath, I will be destroyed by the heavens and the earth, and my soul will be destroyed." The words of Sun Jian, Sun Su, Madame Sun, and Sun Shangxiang were very simple, but the excitement and gratitude in their words were 100%. It was no wonder that they were so moved and excited. After all, the cultivation method given by Yi Chun directly opened up a new path for them. If it was someone else, they might not understand this, but as generals, Sun Jian and Sun Su were very clear about this and were very sure of it. Madame Sun and Sun Shangxiang were no exception. Because their foundation was upgraded to a 3-star immortal body, they also received a cultivation method. And this also made them not only have a new understanding of cultivation, but also the fact that they could at least become golden immortals in the future. What did this mean? Without a doubt, it meant that they would become immortals and completely get rid of their mortal identity. If it was in the past, they would not even dare to think about it. But now, such an opportunity was directly given to them because of their lord, husband, Yi Chun. How could they not be excited and grateful? Madame Sun and Sun Shangxiang were like this, and Sun Jian and Sun Su were even more so. It was also because of the extreme emotions in their hearts that Sun Jian, Sun Su, Madame Sun, and Sun Shangxiang did not hesitate to swear the oath of allegiance to Yichun. As soon as the four of them finished speaking, a thunderous sound that shook heaven and earth instantly sounded. Kaboom! The heavenly Tao sensed and responded. Sensing this, Yichun could not help but smile, and then hurriedly helped the Sun family, Sun Su, Madame Sun, and Sun Shangxiang up. At this moment, Sun Shangxiang suddenly wrinkled her nose and then looked down. In the next second, Sun Shangxiang's face suddenly turned red, and then she let out a scream. Ah, little sister, what's wrong? Sun Su, who did not know what was going on, could not help but be stunned when he heard this. He then looked at Sun Shangxiang and asked. As soon as Sun Su finished speaking, he was slapped on the back of his head by Madame Sunday, bastard. Call her mistress. How rude. Ah. Sun Jian was stunned at first, and then he hurriedly bowed to Yichun and said, My lord, Su was unable to change the way I addressed you. Please understand, my lord. It's okay. It's not a good thing to pay too much attention to this. You will lose your friendship. Yichun heard this and could not help but smile, and then said. As soon as Yichun finished speaking, Sun Shangxiang, who was at the side, blushed and said, Husband, I want to go to take a bath. Chapter 1243. When Yichun heard Sun Shangxiang's words, he couldn't help but smile. Then he looked at the maid in the hall and said, Take Madam to bathe. Yes, you Lord Beach. When the maid heard this, she hurriedly bowed. Then she came to Sun Shangxiang's side and bowed. Madam, please follow this servant. When Sun Shangxiang heard this, she nodded and hurriedly followed the maid out of the hall. Sun Jian, Sun Su, and Madame Sun looked at each other, then hurriedly looked at Yichun and said, My lord, this concubine, will take our leave first. When Yichun heard this, he nodded with a smile and said, Okay. Sun Jian's family had just finished upgrading their root bone, and a lot of impurities have been expelled from their body. It was not suitable for them to continue staying here. Otherwise, it would be very embarrassing. And this was also the reason why Sun Shangxiang suddenly became shy just now. When Yichun finished speaking, Sun Jian, Sun Su, and Madame Sun, who also noticed the abnormality in their bodies, all stiffened. In the next second, the three of them hurriedly bowed to Yichun and hurriedly left. Looking at the departing Sun Jian's family, Yichun couldn't help but smile. Then he walked towards the back of the house. 2 hours later, Yichun brought the blushing Sun Shangxiang back to the real world. After introducing himself to Zhao Yu, Diaochan, Kai Yin, and Nana, Yichun returned to the game world. Fuqing County, Sun Mansion. Space suddenly distorted, and then Yichun walked out. When Guijia and Dian Wei saw Yichun, they bowed to Yichun and said loudly, Greetings, my lord. When Yichun heard this, he nodded with a smile and said, Let's go. Let's go to the next place. The Dongzhuo rebellion would soon begin, and Yichun needed to wait. However, Yichun wouldn't just wait, because that would be a waste of time. Therefore, Yichun left Reincarnation Immortal City to gather a large number of historical officials and generals. If it were other players, they might do the same, but other players didn't have Yichun's methods. To be more precise, other players couldn't do what Yichun did. They could cover the entire Great Han Dynasty with a single thought and identify them. When Yi's words, Guojia and Dianwei looked, they smiled, then bowed together. My lord, my lord. Hearing this, Yichun smiled faintly. With a thought, the space before him started to distort. He and Yichun, Guojia and Dianwei saw this. They hurriedly followed and disappeared without a trace. Hudong Commandery, west of the city, outside a dilapidated house, space suddenly twisted, and then Yichun, Guijia, and Dianwei walked out. My lord, where is this? Guojia, who had just appeared, glanced at the dilapidated courtyard before him. Then, he looked at Yi Chun in confusion. This house was obviously the residence of an ordinary person. Not only was it dilapidated, but it was also overgrown with weeds. No matter how one looked at it, it didn't look like it was inhabited. Of course, this wasn't the main point. Guojia, who also had his divine sense, had already confirmed that there was no one in this house. However, their lord Yi Chun had come directly to this house. How could Guojia not be confused? When he heard Guojia's question, Yi Chun couldn't help but smile. You'll know soon enough. Just as Yi Chun said this, a burly man with a face full of beard suddenly walked out from the corner of the street and stopped where he was. You are. When the burly man finished speaking, Yi Chun, Guojia, and Dian Wei all turned to look at him. After sizing up the burly man, Dian Wei grinned and said, "This body is not bad. He has potential. My lord, this person seems to be against us." Guojia, who had also finished sizing up the burly man, frowned and said. The burly man, who had been sizing up Yi Chun, Guojia, and Dian Wei, suddenly narrowed his eyes and took 3 steps back. You, Lord Yu of Beach. When Yi Chun heard this, he couldn't help but smile. Then, he looked at the burly man and said, Su Huang, it has been a long time since Huang Ju left. Su Huang, it's been quite some time since we parted at Julu. Aren't you going to invite me in? Back then, when the Yellow Turban Rebellion broke out, Yi Chun had led his army to exterminate the Yellow Turban Army. In that battle, corpses littered the plains and rivers of blood flowed. But in the end, Yi Chun had not executed all the Yellow Turban Army. Instead, he had subdued all the Yellow Turban Army that had surrendered and arranged for them to live in Yuzhou. At the time, Yi Chun hadn't thought too much about it. But later on, Yi Chun realized that there was still a famous first-rate general in the Yellow Turban Army, Su Huang, who had never appeared. This made Yi Chun somewhat suspicious. But soon, Yi Chun confirmed one thing. Su Huang had definitely participated in the Yellow Turban Rebellion and hadn't died. Otherwise, there would have been a world announcement. Unfortunately, Su Huang's name was not among the Yellow Turban Army that had been re-registered as a citizen of Yuzhou. Later on, Yi Chun had been so busy that Yi Chun had temporarily given up on searching for Su Huang. And now, Yi Chun wanted to collect historical officials and generals before the Dongjua Rebellion broke out. Naturally, he wouldn't miss out on Su Huang. When Yi Chun said this, Dian Wei, Guojia, and Su Huang were both stunned. After a brief moment of shock, Su Huang came back to his senses. He looked at Yi Chun with a complicated expression and then bowed. Lord Yu of Beach, if you want to kill me or torture me, Su Huang will accept it. When Yi Chun heard this, he couldn't help but smile and ask, why would this king want to kill you? After hearing Yi Chun's words, Su Huang was immediately stunned. Then, he said with incomparable bewilderment, Lord Yu of Beach, I took advantage of the time when the Yellow Turban Rebellion was being registered and secretly ran away. You won't kill me? Yi Chun already knew that Su Huang had run away during the Yellow Turban Rebellion. However, Yi Chun wasn't angry because of this, and he definitely wouldn't kill Su Huang because of this. After all, Su Huang was a first-rate historical general. How could such an existence be willing to farm and live out his life in mediocrity? Unfortunately, Yi Chun didn't have any plans to take in a Yellow Turban Army as his own soldiers. After surrendering to Yi Chun, Su Huang's path of remaining a soldier and pledging his loyalty to Yi Chun was blocked. Thus, he could only choose to leave. When Yi Chun heard this, he directly looked at Su Huang and said with an incomparably serious tone, You didn't drink Zhang Jiao's talisman water, nor are you a brainwashed Yellow Turban warrior. Why would this king want to kill you? Back then, after Yi Chun subdued the Yellow Turban Army, he organized all of them into commoners and labeled them as sinners. This was because the majority of the Yellow Turban Army had been bewitched by Zhang Jiao and killed many innocent commoners. If such existences were to be turned into soldiers, there would be a lot of hidden dangers. It was also because of this reason that Yi Chun rejected all of the Yellow Turban Army and only gave them a peaceful life. However, at that time, Yi Chun had forgotten about Su Huang's existence. When Yi Chun remembered and wanted to find Su Huang again, Su Huang was already gone. Of course, this wasn't important. What was important was that Su Huang couldn't have been bewitched by Zhang Jiao and accepted Zhang Jiao's theories. It was even more impossible for him to drink the talisman water that could cure all diseases. With such a Su Huang, Yi Chun could be at ease in subduing him. There would not be any hidden dangers. Chapter 1244. Once Yi Chen's words left his mouth, Su Huang was immediately stunned. He had never thought that Prince Yu of Han, Yi Chun, would say such a thing. After being stunned for a short moment, Su Huang immediately came back to his senses and thought of something. In the next second, Su Huang gulped down a mouthful of saliva. Then, without the slightest hesitation, he bowed towards Yi Chun and loudly said, "Su Huang is willing to follow my lord. I implore my lord to take me in." Once Su Huang's words left his mouth, the system's notification immediately rang out. Ding! First-rate historical general Su Huang, courtesy name Gongming, wishes to recognize you as his master. Will you accept? Once the system's notification ended, Yi Chun made his choice without the slightest hesitation. Accept. The reason Yi Chun came here was to subdue Su Huang. Now that Su Huang wanted to recognize him as his master, how could Yi Chun refuse? Once Yi Chun made his decision, the system's notification rang out once again. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chun for successfully subduing first-rate historical general Su Huang, Su Gongming. Hearing this, Yi Chun's lips couldn't help but curl up. Then he walked in front of Su Huang and helped him up. Gongming, do your best. Don't disappoint this prince. After Yi Chun finished speaking, he raised his hand and patted Su Huang's shoulder. When Su Huang heard those words, an indescribable feeling of excitement instantly appeared in his heart, which had already started to become excited. Then, it directly exploded. Yi Chun's words were very simple. However, the meaning of value contained within them was extremely strong. It was precisely because he heard the meaning of value in Yi Chun's words that Su Huang, who was excited because he had been accepted by Yi Chun, entered an even more fanatical state of mind. After doing his best to steady his heart that was violently beating due to joy, Su Huang took a step back. Then, with a bang, he knelt on one knee on the ground. In the next second, Su Huang raised both his hands and fiercely cupped his fist and shouted, "Su Huang swears to follow my lord to the death. I will definitely not disappoint my lord. If I violate this oath, may the heavens and earth destroy me." As soon as Su Huang finished speaking, the sound of a system notification rang out. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chun, Su Huang's loyalty +10. Promoted to die loyal. The moment the system notification ended, the corners of Yi Chun's mouth curled up. Not bad, not bad. He's so loyal right from the start. Such a subordinate can definitely do it. Just as Yi Chun thought of this, the world announcement instantly sounded. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Chun for successfully subduing a first-rate historical general, Su Huang. Due to his special status, player Yi Chun is rewarded with an additional 10 million gold taels. The world announcement was repeated 3 times in a row, instantly causing the entire world channel to explode. Damn, Yu of Gojoseon is still on the move. Previously, he took in Sun Jian, Sun Su, Sun Shangxiang, and now he took in Su Huang. Who will he take in next? Does it have anything to do with you? You bastard, you're just worrying too much. Damn, you can't even talk about it? Damn, the world channel doesn't belong to your family. Why are you wasting time? Speaking of which, have you guys ever wondered why Yi Yu of Gojoseon is wantonly taking in historical officials, historical generals, and historical beauties? What do you mean why? Isn't it obvious? Yi Yu of Gojoseon wants to take in all the talents in the game world before he conquers the world? Damn, you don't understand what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that Dongzhu's rebellion is about to start, but Yi Yu of Gojoseon hasn't made any moves. Why is that? Damn, You reminded me. That's not right. Dongzhu's rebellion is definitely a historical storyline. There's no reason for Yi Yu of Gojoseon not to participate, right? Damn, Dongzhu's rebellion hasn't started yet. What's so strange about it? What do you know? Based on Yi Yu of Gojoseon's usual style, if he wanted to participate in a storyline quest, he would have mobilized his troops early in the morning to prepare for it. However, Yi Yu of Gojoseon hasn't made any moves at all. Not only that, Yi Yu of Gojoseon rebuilt Samsara City for some reason, but it was destroyed by a giant palm. That's also strange. I'm guessing that Yi Yu of Gojoseon destroyed Samsara City himself. Don't forget, the only person who has the ability to do so is Yi Yu of Gojoseon. Besides, no one would dare to destroy Yi Yu of Gojoseon's Samsara City. You bastards, what's the point of talking about this and that? Hurry up and level up to prepare for Dongzhu's rebellion. Also, aren't you afraid that Yi Yu of Gojoseon will kill you with your words? Damn, we're just chatting. It's not like we're going against Yi Yu of Gojoseon. Ahem. Well, I'm going to go kill some bandits first. The World Channel was in an uproar. Yichin couldn't help but raise his eyebrows when he saw it. There were a lot of smart people. Unfortunately, no one knew my specific plan. Otherwise, these players would have jumped up. Yichin was still in the Three Kingdoms novice zone. He forcefully suppressed his realm and did not ascend. He wanted to complete his final plan, which was to ascend with the entire nation. As for the process of completing his plan, it was very simple. Once the vassal war began, Yichin would immediately mobilize his troops, sweep across the world, and establish a dynasty of fate. After that, Yichin would be able to ascend with the entire nation. However, Yichin would not bring any of the players with him to ascend, nor would he accept the players as his subjects. Otherwise, the players would be able to enjoy the blessing of fate from the Samsara Empire that Yichin was going to build soon. Then, they would be able to cultivate several times faster. Yichin would never allow such a situation to happen. Of course, this was also why Yichin believed that the players would jump up in arms. To be more precise, if the players knew that they would be able to cultivate several times faster by becoming Yichin's subjects, they would definitely be excited. They would be so excited that they would kick up a fuss because of this. After that, all the players would beg Yichin to accept them. Thinking of this, Yichin looked directly at Su Huang, who was indescribably excited because he thought highly of him, and said, "Gongming, I'll send you to Reincarnation Immortal City in a bit. When you get there, go find Mi Zhu and Mi Zizhong, and he will arrange a place for you to stay. After you find a place to stay, go find Zhao Yun, Zhao Zilong, Guan Yu, and Zhang Fei. Have them explain the situation of the Reincarnation Immortal City's army to you. Once you're familiar with it, you can choose 100,000 soldiers." "Yes, my lord." Hearing this, Su Huang's eyes lit up, and he hurriedly bowed and loudly saluted. The fact that Yichin was willing to subdue Su Huang and thought highly of him had already caused Su Huang to be extremely excited. And now, Yichin was actually going to hand over 100,000 soldiers to Su Huang and make him a general. This caused Su Huang to be extremely excited. One had to know that he was a general who commanded an army, not a centurion, a chiliarch, or a lieutenant. It was precisely because of this that Su Huang was so excited. After hearing Su Huang's excited words, Yichin chuckled and nodded. Then, he waved his right hand, and the space beside him suddenly distorted. Pointing at the distorted space, Yichin said, "Go in. You can directly enter. This general will take his leave." Hearing this, Su Huang tried his best to calm his violently beating heart. Then, he turned to Yichin and loudly saluted. Chapter 1245. When Yichin heard this, he chuckled and nodded. Seeing this, Su Huang bowed once more and headed into the distorted space. In the next second, Su Huang disappeared. After glancing at the spot where Su Huang disappeared, Yichin looked at Guojia and Dian Wei and said, "Let's go. Let's go to the next place." "Yes, my lord." When Guojia and Dian Wei heard this, they bowed in unison. As soon as the two finished speaking, Yi Chun waved his right hand, and the space beside him instantly distorted. After glancing at the distorted space, Yi Chun stepped into it and disappeared. Guijia and Dian Wei followed closely behind. Luoyang, Great General's residence. Great General, the young emperor is still young, and the eunuchs are monopolizing power. The common people are suffering unspeakably. I implore Great General to give the order to execute Zhang Rang and the other eunuchs to bring order to the court. After taking a sip of tea, Lieutenant Yuan Shao looked directly at Yi Jin, who was sitting at the head of the table, and said this. When Great General He Jin heard this, he glanced at Yuan Shao and asked, Ben Shu, do you know who the person behind Zhang Rang is? The person behind Zhang Rang? Yuan Shao was stunned for a moment before asking, Great General He Jin, Great General He Jin. In the past, Zhang Rang caused chaos in the court by deceiving the previous emperor. Now that the young emperor has succeeded the throne, who is Zhang Rang's backer? When He Jin heard this, he was silent for a moment before asking, Ben Shu, could it be that you've forgotten about you of Beach? When Yuan Shao heard this, he was stunned again. He had never expected He Jin to say this. After regaining his composure, Yuan Shao said without hesitation, Impossible. This is absolutely impossible. You of Beak's reputation is unparalleled in the world. It is impossible for you to have any connection with Zhang Rang. Originally, there was nothing impossible in this world. Did you forget that every time someone reported you of Beach, it was Zhang Rang who defended you? When Great General He Jin heard this, he glanced at Yuan Shao and said. After Yuan Shao heard He Jin's words, he immediately fell silent. After 10 minutes, Yuan Shao raised his head and looked at He Jin. General, you of Beach has been summoned back to the sect, and Samsara City has been destroyed by the immortals. In my opinion, you of Beach will never be able to come out. Otherwise, you of Beach would have shown up when the late emperor passed away. However, you of Beach did not show up. When He Jin heard this, he was silent for a moment before he said, Ben Shu, let me think about it. When Yuan Shao heard this, he hurriedly got up and bowed. Great General, it is now or never. If we don't get rid of the eunuchs gang as soon as possible, they will bewitch the young emperor, and there will be no more days of peace in the Han dynasty. When He Jin heard this, his expression suddenly changed, but he quickly regained his composure. Great General, do not be soft-hearted. Kill when you need to. What's more, the young emperor is your nephew. If you allow Zhang Rang and the other eunuchs to bewitch him, I'm afraid you'll be in deep trouble. Yuan Shao bowed again when he saw that He Jin was silent. When He Jin heard this, he immediately frowned. When Yuan Shao saw this, he bowed again. Great General, good. This matter is settled. When He Jin heard this, he took a deep breath and exhaled. After that, he suddenly stood up and shouted, Yes, General. When Yuan Shao heard this, his eyes involuntarily lit up and he hurriedly bowed. Outside the door, a maidservant who was waiting for orders at any time secretly glanced at the hall and then quietly left. Luoyang, Zhang Rang's residence. You said that old man He Jin wants this humble servant's life? When Zhang Rang heard the maidservant's report, he immediately stood up and asked with a fierce look in his eyes. When the maidservant heard this, her body involuntarily trembled and she hurriedly bowed. Yes, Lord Permanent Attendant. This servant heard this with her own ears. Men, prepare the carriage. This humble servant wishes to enter the palace. When Zhang Rang heard this, he looked out the door and shouted. Then he looked at the maidservant and said, You have done well. This humble servant will not treat you unfairly. In the future, you will work in this humble servant's residence. Your monthly salary will be 10 gold. Many thanks, Lord Permanent Attendant. Many thanks, Lord Permanent Attendant. When the maidservant heard this, she was overjoyed and hurriedly bowed. Hearing this, Zhang Rang nodded and went straight out of the door. Luoyang, the imperial palace. In a remote hall, several eunuchs listened to Zhang Rang's report and grimaced. That damned He Jin, that damned Yuan Shao, they actually wanted to kill us. These scoundrels have long wanted to harm us. We can't just sit around and wait for death. That's right. In my view, we should act tonight and kill Jin. While Woyang was in turmoil, Yichen had brought Guijia and Dianwei to Changshi County in Yingchuan. They were quietly drinking tea in a tea house outside a house made of mud and straw. Your Excellency, why don't we just enter? After taking a sip of tea, Guijia glanced at the house across from them and then turned to Yichen. When Yichen heard this, he couldn't help but smile and say, "Of course not. Mother Su is training her son. If we go in, we'll disturb her. But if Mother Su continues to beat him, Su Yuanji will probably be bedridden for more than a month," Guijia said, his lips twitching as he bowed. When Yichen heard this, he chuckled and shook his head. Mother Su's methods are very rare. She seems to be very strong, but in reality, she has a very good grasp of the situation. It won't get in the way. Your Excellency, why is Su Yuanji being beaten? Why can't I understand it? Dianwei scratched his head and asked after hearing that. Hearing Dianwei's words, Yichen immediately smiled. Guijia's mouth twitched as he asked, "What are you talking about? General Dian, have you ever visited a brothel?" When Dianwei heard this, he was stunned and hurriedly said, "I've never been to that kind of place. Don't speak nonsense." When Guijia heard this, he glanced at Yichen, who was smiling silently. Then, he turned to Dianwei and said, "This Su Yuanji, looks ordinary and even a little dull. However, this person's biggest characteristic is that he likes to inquire about all kinds of information. This brothel is a brothel. The staff is complicated and there is a lot of information. Therefore, Su Yuanji often visits brothel. As for the rest, I don't need to say." When Dianwei heard this, he came to a sudden realization and said, "No wonder Mother Su beat him. If my mother knew that I went to that kind of place, she would probably break my leg." When Yichen heard this, he laughed and put down his teacup. He stood up and said, "That's enough. It's time for us to pay him a visit." When Dianwei and Guijia heard this, they both stood up and followed Yichen to Su Shu's house. When they reached the door, Yichen looked at Dianwei and said, "Knock on the door. Remember not to use too much force." You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.